In 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, Jimmy. What's up?
Hi, Joe. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Now we're on the radio.
Fantastic. It's
All
3:31, 29 minutes before 4 o'clock.
Here's Val with the weather. Hot as fuck. Back to you, Jimmy.
Wow. So we got a car fire in the breakdown lane.
So you were getting emotional in the green room listening to Henry Rollins talk about Putin. You're about to quote Chomsky.
Yes. So
what was that?
I just caught the end of it. I went in the green room, and everybody loves Henry Rollins, right? And
Except Henry.
Oh,
That's why he's so good.
Maybe
He's constantly grinding. You know?
Yeah. But he was doing that thing about, Putin. There was a journalist who wrote a book about him, ended up dead. Putin's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. As opposed to who?
Well, no, but you mean he's definitely a bad guy, right? We all agree that.
Yeah,
of course. But, I mean, just because other people are also bad guys, it doesn't negate his point of Putin being a bad guy. What he was saying is just that it's very bizarre that the Republicans, these people that were, at the forefront of the Cold War, these ones who are, these are the people that remember Khrushchev banging on the desk, saying, we'll bury you with Kennedy. And these people are now, they're whitewashing Putin. They're essentially, trying to paint out Putin to be a good guy because Trump is in this position where he's trying to be friends with this guy.
So, here's the quote I wanted to send you. Right.
Please.
So that whole thing, if Nuremberg laws were applied, then every post-war American president would have been hanged, says Noam Chomsky. Putin kills journalists. We just torture ours. So, Chelsea Manning is a whistleblower. Barack Obama tortured her. So we have our president. We have presidents and vice presidents who are legit war criminals that walk around today. They had a torture program. Yeah. Okay, so Barack Obama got a peace prize, and then he had a kill list. A peace prize winner with a kill list, a drone kill list. Would you keep the kill list next to the peace prize? Where do you keep those two things? Are they anyway? So this.
Not only that, some of the people that were killed were American citizens with no due process.
And so nobody has a problem with Trump being buddies with Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a psychopathic maniac who shoots with precision medics who are trying to help people and nurses and journalists. By the way,
but some Israeli troops have done that.
Israeli troops do that.
That's a really depressing thing. I had Abby Martin on, and she sort of illuminated that whole situation. I mean, I really didn't know how bad it was, nor did she until she went over there.
Right.
And, just experiencing what it's like. It's crazy that people that went through the Holocaust, that realized the cost of dehumanizing an entire race of people, now are capable, at least some of them are capable of doing that to the Palestinians.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing. So to hear, and I have friends who do that. Everyone's doing this, right? Everyone's getting caught up in this hysteria. That's why there's a word called hysteria, because it happens, and we're in one. And, what I like is what Noam Chomsky said about this Russia hysteria that's happening. He said, if you care about effects on our pristine elections, which he said very sarcastically, he said, if you care about what's affecting our pristine elections, the Russia gate is the last place I would look. And the first place he would look, if you're worried about foreign control of or influence on our government, he said he would look to Israel. They're the ones. Benjamin Netanyahu came here and addressed the joint session of Congress without the permission or invitation of the president. Remember when Obama was president, he did that? He did that. That's a guy coming here to tell our guys how to vote in direct defiance of our president, and everyone embraced him. Can you imagine if Putin did that? Putin came to America and addressed our joint session of Congress against the will of the president? So this idea that somehow because Putin is a bad guy, Trump shouldn't have a good friendship with him is BS. The guys who are really influencing our government here are Benjamin Netanyahu, Saudi Arabia. Trump opened 8 businesses in Saudi Arabia during the election, and no one gives a crap about any of that stuff because they're our friends. Saudi Arabia, by the way, just bombed a school today. School bus, 29 kids dead. So,
I just
retweeted that from Sarah Abdullah. So why would they do that? Because they're in Yemen. They're bombing. We're committing genocide in Yemen right now. So we're helping Saudi Arabia commit a genocide in Yemen. And the way we're doing it is they're doing a thing called siege warfare, which is a war crime. And in fact, they just prosecuted someone a few months ago at The Hague for it. So, since we're doing it and we're the enforcers, And Saudi Arabia is on the Human Rights Council. So it's everything's a joke now, right? So we're past it, where it's a farce. We're living in this farce. And so when I see a guy that I love, like Henry Rollins, saying stuff like, "Oh, Putin's the special kind of bad," I just quote back Chomsky. We have nothing. We have legit war criminals, just one presidency away.
Do you think he's a step removed from that, though? I mean, he'll assassinate journalists in his own country to criticize him.
Right now, we're trying to assassinate Julian Assange. Right now, our
government... Do you think we're trying to assassinate him? Is that what they're trying to do?
Yes, they're trying to kill that guy. Yes, they want that guy dead. Hillary Clinton was like, can't we drone that guy? Can't we kill him?
Yeah, she really did say that.
Yeah, she really did say that after she just got done killing Gaddafi and then laughed about it.
Yeah, that's we've played that several times.
Yeah.
We came, we saw, he died. The fact that any human being would ever do that, and by the way he died, that's some dark shit. They watched and they stabbed him in the asshole.
Right.
And there's a video of them stabbing him in the asshole while he's standing there, just confused, not knowing what to do. And this guy's jamming a sword up his ass.
Have you seen the video?
Yes.
Oh, I have not seen that.
Oh, my God. It's awful. You want to see it?
No.
The video of them capturing him is fascinating because it's a guy who has lived with an iron fist, controlled these people, been a brutal dictator, been a horrible monster of a human being. Now all of a sudden these rebels have captured him, and they can't believe they have him, and they're shooting him and stabbing him, and then eventually they have his body and they parade his body around after they've killed him. But there's video of him. You should look at it for a moment because it's so stunning to see him captured and alive, and can't believe that these rebels have him. That it's not even like, you know.
I have seen video of him captured and that look on his face, so I know what you're talking about.
Just the guy's shoving,
but I
shoving a knife up his ass.
I hit a dog with my car a while ago, and I just can't. I have no stomach for any of that stuff anymore. I just. I don't know. I had a real breakdown. Like we took it to the vet. It lived. I hit a dog. Killed it about a year and a half ago. It might have already been dead.
It might have been dead
because I think it was laying in the street. Because I didn't see it, so it had to be already laying there. Anyways, so and then I was driving to my pot store in Eagle Rock, and I saw this little black pup dog run across the street in front of our car, and there's this big median, like a grass median, and I go, stop, and the cars hasn't started coming yet the other way, and I stop, so my wife stops, and I jump out, and I'm running, and I see the cars coming, and I don't see the dog anymore, and then I see the dog next to the curb, and it's kind of like just going like that, and it just crushed me. Like even now to think of it.
So
anyway,
it's twitching like you got hit?
Yes, it got hit. And so we picked it up and we drove to a hospital as soon as we could. I mean, an animal hospital, which there was one not far away. And it lived. The dog lived, but I couldn't believe it.
Did you take it as a pet?
No. They just, my wife called back, to the thing, and they said, yeah, it's going to live, and we have someone that's going to take it. I'm like, okay, thank God. But I was so surprised at how I just broke down over that puppy. The dog I ran over, I was like numb to, but that dog, for some reason, it just everything open, and I was just, I couldn't. I was such a basket case.
It's hard. Puppies are so cute.
It was such.
I was. That gets hit by a car. That's sad shit.
And so it's just like I can see, and I feel. Like, I don't know if I have this, but I feel like I have PTSD over that, right? Like I way overreacted to that situation. So there was a lot more going on there. And
so when someone says something like the Gaddafi video, you're like, I
just can't even.
I can't. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't even imagine guys who have to go to war and the stuff they have to see and the things that they have to do. I don't know how they all don't come home.
Do you know anybody who went over there?
Yeah. I've been to Afghanistan.
No, but soldiers, I mean.
But I know, yeah, I mean, I know them, not personally, like they come to my show, that kind of stuff. I know those people. I don't have a close friend who was actually in combat like that, no.
I have a few close friends that have been in combat, and when they start drinking, and that's when, the inhibitions get loosened up, and then the stories start flowing, and, most people, but it's not something people are designed to see. you know, especially not when no one else is seeing it. The
Right.
thing is, if we all lived in the Roman times and everybody was getting sorted up every day and people getting hit with arrows all the time, it's a normal part of life. And people start accepting the fact that there's going to be loss. But there's something about living today where the majority of human beings live in this uber safe environment that's probably more safe than any people have ever lived ever, and just overall in general, like the modern Western civilization. But then you're going over to Afghanistan, and you're dealing with bombings in schools and buses and sniper attacks, and your buddy just lost a leg from an IED, and that kind of shit just wears on a person.
Yeah. Just anything. I can't believe we still do war like this. It's just, I get in a lot of trouble because I'm anti-war, and all wars are bullshit.
How do you get in trouble because you're anti-war?
Well, for instance,
who's pro-war?
The entire establishment is pro-war. You know that. Every newscaster is pro-war. If you're not pro-war, you don't get on TV. If you're against the war, you get fired, like Phil Donahue, like Ed Schultz, like Jesse Ventura, like Ashley Banfield. If you tell, like Chris Hedges, if you tell the truth about the war, you will get fired from establishment news. And
There's no establishment news that will let you talk openly other than RT. RT seems to be pretty open, which is really ironic.
That's ironic, right?
Yeah, I mean, when Abby Martin was working for RT, I was like, Jesus Christ, like, how's that work? The Empire Files, and you're working for Russia? Like,
I know it's
crazy.
It's a crazy juxtaposition. It is weird. Ed Schultz was the one who said that, he was told what to cover, what not to cover at MSNBC. He was told not to cover Bernie Sanders. He wanted to cover Bernie Sanders anyway. He said that the Hillary Clinton campaign and the head of NBC News, Andy Lack, were joined at the hip, and he tried to cover Bernie Sanders. He was told not to. He was yelled at by the head of MSNBC. That's how he described it. And a month later, he was fired. He was out.
Well, Cenk had a similar situation. Cenk from the Young Turks.
Cenk, he was told that our friends in Washington don't like your tone.
Oh, my God.
That's what they told him.
That is hilarious.
And he was winning his time slot. And they told him that. And they moved him to the weekend to give Al Sharpton. This is true. This is true. So they moved him to the weekend, and they said they wanted him to work on his presentation skills. The guy's winning his time slot. They're saying, we want you to work on your presentation skills. And meanwhile, who'd they replace him with? Al Sharpton.
Well, he's got great presentation skills. That's all Al has. I mean, he's got a nice suit on.
Al Sharpton, did you ever see him try to read a teleprompter? It's brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great orator.
Yeah.
But he's not a teleprompter reader.
No.
And it was like I have clips we used to make fun all the time on my show of him. It was hilarious. And then to find out that that's the reason they gave was because he's a better presenter. He's a great orator. That's different than being a news presenter.
Right.
And that is not in Al Sharpton's wheelhouse.
No, it's just he's not the most trustworthy person either. I mean, he's got a history of deception. So you having
the way he got that job.
Yeah. Well, how about the way he became famous? The Tawana Brawley case. I mean, he became famous through deception. And so you're seeing this guy who is basically a famous con man who's now on television on a news program.
Well, they have. There's a lot. Look at Brian Williams.
Yes. Is he back? Is he back in the air?
Yes, he has the 11th hour on MSNBC. So
has everybody forgotten?
Everybody has forgotten. His punishment was he had to spend 6 months giggling with Rachel Maddow.
What did he do?
They have these show. They do these shows. They got like these round tables, and and he has to laugh and pretend. They all pretend.
You know what's fucked up about him? All he had to do was tell the truth, and it was scary enough.
No shit.
Yeah, I mean, you were in Iraq. You really were there.
You really were there.
Yeah, I mean, you really were there. Or Afghanistan? Was it Iraq or Afghanistan?
I think it was Iraq.
And you really, shots were fired. But Hillary did the same goddamn thing.
Oh, that's right.
She lied about being shot at. She fucking straight up lied about being shot at.
She was in Bosnia, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
And who was it? Who was the comedian who outed her? It was Sinbad.
Did he?
Yeah, it was Sinbad who was on that trip, and he's like, there was no sniper fire.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, she was busted straight up lying about being shot at. Yeah.
So it's always shocking to me when I find out that politicians are lying. Isn't it something?
Crazy. Can't believe it's real.
They're all it's weird. It's such a only the purest of people are drawn to that profession. It's whenever I find out they're narcissistic megalomaniacs, I'm always shocked.
Well, you know what it is, Jimmy? We're weeding out the bad apples, and then we're eventually going to get to the good ones.
Yeah.
We just got to get rid of these bad ones first.
So that's why it comes back to when he was talking about how Putin, he's like, hey, I want to tell Trump, slow down, don't be friends with this guy. No, I want Trump to be friends with Putin because he's a nuclear power. I want Trump to be friends with anybody. We need détente. You know, NATO is the one ramping up tensions with Russia, and we have ever since the Cold War supposedly ended. And so, you know, it was just a few. Anyway, so I just think, yes, Putin is a bad guy. They're all bad guys.
Right.
There's why, I just had John Kiriakou on my show. I don't know
Who
if
is he?
So he is ex-CIA guy. He went to prison because he exposed a torture program.
Oh.
Yeah. So Robert Mueller actually prosecuted that guy.
Whoa.
So now he's a member of Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, VIPs, and they were invented, or they were originally organized to debunk the weapons of mass destruction about Iraq. So they were intelligence professionals who knew what was happening, that we were being sold a bill of goods because the military-industrial complex wanted its war, right?
Yeah.
And so they were like all the top guys, Ray McGovern, Bill Binney, and they created this organization to help debunk it. Well,
Bill Binney is the guy who was the first whistleblower for the NSA, correct?
That they tried to throw, and the FBI tried to throw him in jail. And of course, he's the smartest guy the NSA ever had, so he outsmarted the FBI.
Well, how did he do that?
So
I forget the story, but
I forget the story. He told it to me, but he had them secretly recorded saying certain things, and so when they tried to show the evidence against him, he's like, actually, I got you guys. And they're like, oh, shit. And so they could. And so he had them. So he outsmarted them. And he tells the story on my show. It was about a year ago, so I don't remember exactly how it went. But he told me a lot of mind-blowing stuff on my show. A lot of stuff. Just like about how they spy on us.
Well, he was the one that first exposed this program that was essentially spying on every single email, every single voicemail, every single conversation that you have is being recorded.
So William Binney invented a thing called Thin Thread. So Thin Thread was a data collection. So what he did is he hooked up every cell phone to every cell phone in the universe. And he did it. And it was hard to do, and everybody said you couldn't do it. He did it. And so he knew that metadata was more predictive than, say, if I tap your phone and listen to your actual phone conversation. I actually learn more by looking at a larger data set. And when contacts start happening, that means movement's happening. That means an attack is going to happen. That means more. So the metadata means more. And so he found a way to track people and keep your identity secret, so it was constitutional. That's what he cared about, the Constitution and the right to privacy. And Thin Thread did that. It was a better, and they got rid of Thin Thread, and a couple weeks later, 9/11 happened. So that's who Bill Binney is. And so he said they got rid of it because there's billions of dollars in the new they brought in I think it was called Trailblazer, not as good as a tracker, not as good as a metadata thing. But it was, $5-6 billion to Booz Allen or whoever invented it. And that's what this is all about. This is all about money, and you don't want to disappoint people who want to have a lot of money paid their way. And then, so he blew the whistle on that, and they come back at him and they try to put him in jail. That's what they do to whistleblowers. That's what we do. So that's funny to hear him say, oh, somebody wrote a bad book about Putin and they ended up dead. What do you think we do in this country? Look what they did to Chelsea Manning. Look what we did to people who expose war crimes inside of our country. Right now, they're trying to assassinate Julian Assange. They have him in basically solitary confinement. We literally did torture Chelsea Manning. So, and then, Barack Obama used he prosecuted lots of whistleblowing journalists using now I'm blanking on the word it's called, but Espionage Act. So this idea that, I'm sure maybe Putin did. Maybe that woman who wrote that book about Putin has a lot of powerful enemies. Usually you do. When you are that kind of a journalist where you're exposing the powerful, she probably didn't just expose Putin. So she probably exposed a lot of people. My point being is that, now who's being naive, Kay?
Well, I mean, she probably did expose a lot of people, but it's also very likely that Putin had her killed.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
Barack Obama had a kill list.
Yeah.
So these guys are out. He took us from 2 wars to 7. He did Libya, turned it into a failed state.
Yeah.
Right now they have open slave trading.
I know. You can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah. So
dark.
And they want to do it again. They want to do it in Syria. So Joe, let me ask you a question. If we get rid of Assad in Syria, do you know who takes over?
Jesus or something.
That's right.
Is that who starts running things? Moses, or is he around?
Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra.
Yeah.
So that
They create a power vacuum, which is what always happens.
The Wahhabi terrorists funded by Saudi Arabia, that's who takes over.
Yeah.
And I have videotape after videotape of our top officials admitting that Saudi Arabia funds ISIS and that we also did. So, and that we created Al-Qaeda. And ISIS was created because of our invasion of Iraq, but then we actually fund them. And we ship them arms. So
for what reason?
To go overthrow Assad so we can put a pipeline through Syria.
So we fund them so that they fight Assad, but then Saudi Arabia funds them.
This isn't the first time we did that. We funded Al-Qaeda so they would fight the Russians.
Right.
So this is the same. And then we're left with them.
When was the Mujahideen?
That's when they were the Mujahideen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I have videotapes of Hillary Clinton screaming about this. We created this problem. She says this on video. I have it. So that's why I get in trouble, because I tell the truth about the war. And if you tell the truth about the war, you'll be called a conspiracy theorist by the establishment news. That's exactly what's happened. That happened to me.
Are you a conspiracy theorist now?
No, that's what they say.
Huh.
You know what because I tell the truth about Syria.
Right.
The biggest conspiracy of my lifetime was the Iraq War. That was a conspiracy.
Yeah, that's a legit conspiracy.
That's a legit conspiracy.
Yeah, I mean, that's one you can actually prove.
Right.
I mean, I used to have a whole bit about it. I used to have a whole bit about, like, that the only way to find out if someone was, like, from 2005. It was that the reason why they put George Bush in power is the only way to find out if someone is really stupid is to put an actual stupid guy in as president and find out if everybody freaks out. That's the only way to really tell. And we were like, well, we could put a smart guy in there and have him act dumb. Like, no. We'll never know. We'll never know. We get a dumb guy. Let's just try it out and see what happens. And then it was the whole thing about us going to war in Iraq. Like, why did we go to the war over there? And what did we tell them? And they bought that? Holy shit.
Yep.
And then it was, he won again? He won again. Fuck. And I go, and there's someone in the back of the room going, I think we can go dumber. and that became Trump. That was from 2005, from my Showtime special from 13 years ago.
So let me tell you something. Trump will be allowed to be president and was allowed to be president because he's doing the bidding of the establishment. They're on board with most of the stuff he's doing. They're like that. He's not pulling back on any of the wars. They've all ramped up the military budget. Isn't it funny, Joe?
But they're not protecting him from Mueller. They're not protecting him from this investigation.
Well, nothing's happened.
Right.
Again, and by the way, what they've gotten him on is all regular corruption. Like I said, Trump is corrupt. Yes, he's corrupt. He's corrupt with Saudi Arabia. He's corrupt with Russia. He's corrupt with Israel. They're all corrupt. What do you think? The Clinton Foundation. They're all the Chomsky quote. They'd all be hung if we applied the Nuremberg standards. So this is the world we're living in. So this idea that somehow we need to focus extra on Trump and somehow Putin. And you know what? Journalists, the anti-Putin journalists in Russia will tell you that we're a bunch of numbskulls over here because we're inflating Putin's power. So we are he's this all-powerful guy who's got his finger in every decision everywhere at all times. Alyssa Milano's now blaming the Green Party being controlled by the Russians for an Ohio election, a special election. I'm not kidding. I can show you the tweet.
Alyssa Milano.
You think I'm... And who doesn't love Alyssa Milano, right?
She's beautiful.
Who doesn't? She's one of the prettiest of all time.
I met her in a hotel once.
Did you really?
Wandering through the hotel, we got in an elevator together.
So here is...
I can't believe I'm in a hotel elevator with Alyssa Milano.
That is.
I said hello. She said hello back. And that was it.
Did she know who you were?
I don't think so. No. It was a long time ago, too.
She says, you know what sucks? Because of our unwillingness to pass policy that protects our election integrity, I immediately think the Green Party votes tonight's are Russian meddling. Why else would anyone cast a protest vote in Ohio when there's so much at stake?
So much at stake. That's so delusional. Like, what is a protest vote? What's your vote worth? If everyone votes and they all vote green, is that a protest vote? Isn't it possible that the Green Party can win? Like, do you have no faith? So what they're doing is essentially just bowing down to a rigged system, saying the system's rigged, so just vote for side B, even though side A and B are funded by the same people. I know, but ideologically, side B is our side. That's what she's saying.
So what they've gone past, so now the hashtag resistance have gone beyond voter shaming, and now what they're actually doing is democracy shaming. You don't get to participate in democracy.
Exactly.
And those people, so let me tell you something. When people say, oh, the Greens take away vote, I would not have voted in the presidential election if I did not have the opportunity to vote for the Green Party.
Right.
So those votes, you don't own those votes. The way electoral politics works is that if you don't have enough votes to win, you have to go get them. Right. And you have to appeal to those votes. But they don't have an appeal to voters, the Democratic Party. They have nothing. And so what they have left is fear and voter shaming. And that's it. Now they're actually shaming democracy.
Well, you would also think that by the time, after we've gotten through this past election where literally no one in the mainstream media other than maybe Fox News predicted that Trump was going to win. No one. They all were 100% sure that Hillary was going to win. They were had in the 90% range of probability of her winning, and they were displaying it on CNN. So they know that that's wrong. So why would someone think that a Green Party candidate has to be, or a Libertarian candidate has to be, a protest vote? Why can't it be a real vote at this point? When you're talking about the kind of social media outreach that is capable today, that's possible today, where a person who has some really good points and has look at this woman who won in New York, the 28-year-old girl is a Democratic socialist.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes. Look, if that doesn't tell you, like, this world is changing in a radical way, and upstarts and people who are huge underdogs have the possibility of winning. It's not a protest vote. It's an actual vote. And if everybody who thinks this way votes towards that protest vote, guess what? They win.
That's right.
That's what it is.
So I used to have a joke, or I would say, no, you can't vote for a third-party candidate until a lot of people are already voting for a third-party candidate.
Exactly.
That's what they're saying. You can't vote for them. They have no chance to win. So you have to wait till a lot of people are already. So that people don't understand that inherent contradiction. And by the way, people, maybe if you spent a tenth of the energy trying to excite the half of the country that doesn't vote, as you do and trying to voter shame progressives or Green Party or environmentalists for not giving you their vote, which you do not fucking own.
Right. Exactly.
If you were to spend a tenth of the energy trying to excite people who don't participate to participate instead of shaming the people who do participate, maybe you'd get somewhere.
It's also this reluctance to admit that both sides are corrupt is this very strange thing that exists on people who operate within this narrow bandwidth. And this narrow bandwidth is whatever side you're on, whether it's you're on the right or the left, this is the side that you want to win. And it's the right side, and they're the good people. And the other side, even though our side does wrong, this side does worse. And they operate in this real narrow bandwidth. This is why she would think something that's possibly negative for her side is a protest vote instead of being your actual feelings on the issue.
And if these people really cared about voting integrity, wouldn't they want paper ballots?
Yeah.
If they really cared about voter integrity, wouldn't they want ranked choice voting? Wouldn't they want that? Then you don't have to worry about this.
Ranked choice voting? What
ranked choice. So they have it in Maine now, right? So it's where you get to. This is my first choice. This is my second choice. This is my third choice.
Oh.
So you don't get to. So it eliminates that you're a spoiler. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and they voted in Maine, and the politicians, of course, don't want it. So they got rid of it. And they had to court reinstate it. They had to, I think it's happened twice now.
How does it work in terms of, like, say if you're going to vote for, governor of Maine? You have a first choice, a second choice, and a third choice?
Let's say there's three choices.
Right.
So you get to say, well, let's say if your first choice was a Green Party candidate, you go, okay, that's my first choice, but my second choice would be the Democrat.
So in case
and my third choice would be, maybe nobody.
And so does, like, second choice have different points?
So if your first choice doesn't get enough votes to win, then your second choice goes, right? So that's how it works. So you're never wasting your vote. And you know what's ironic is that, and I might have, there's been people who can better explain that. So please, I know people are going to, Jimmy, the better way to say that, I'm sure there's better ways. But the thing that kills me is that Bernie Sanders, his whole career was about being an independent. And I have videotapes of him saying, you know what kills me is I go out and I do these talks and I talk to the people. They come up to me after these debates and they say, you know, I like what you said and you make the most sense, but I can't vote for you because you're never going to win. I hate that. They go, I want to waste my vote. Oh, if there's one thing I hate more than that's phrase, waste your vote. This was what he was saying his entire career until now. And I want to know why. I want to know what the hell does Bernie Sanders in 2018 know that Bernie Sanders in 2006 didn't know, and Bernie Sanders in 1996 doesn't know. And he tells everybody you got to run. He's getting people to come into the Democratic Party, which is actively cheating them. Yet he still
cheating
runs,
him
and him.
Yeah.
Yet he still runs as an independent in Maine. I mean, in Vermont, he still runs it. Everybody's saying you can't do. He gets to run as an independent.
He gets to run as an independent while representing the Democratic Party sometimes.
Yes. So they have a special sweetheart deal.
So what is he saying when he said, is he saying now that protest votes are a waste? Like, what is he saying?
He told everybody to vote for Hillary. He's not starting a third party. And, his whole life he said that we have to have, the verbiage he used one time I saw him was that, Jesse Jackson's correct. We need a rainbow coalition of people, but it has to happen outside of the Democratic Party. He said that. That was him. So we have to have a progressive coalition, but it has to happen outside. And who better to lead it but Bernie Sanders? So that's why it's hard to start a third party, because you need people who are already famous and popular and in government. So if he left and he got, say, Tulsi Gabbard and Nina Turner and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and he got a bunch of people that are super popular on the left, we'd have a third party that would be polling at 10, 15%. And now the Democrats would have to form a coalition instead of what they're doing now, which is ignoring progressives. After she cheated Bernie Sanders, after the Democrats cheated Bernie Sanders in the primary, Hillary Clinton didn't choose Bernie Sanders as her vice president, as an olive branch. She didn't choose Elizabeth Warren as an olive branch. She went to her right. She got Tim Kaine, who's to the right of her, who's anti-union, who's everything bad thing you want, and a corporate Democrat. He's pro-wall, the whole deal. She went, so if we had a third party that actually polled at 10 or 15%, they couldn't do that anymore. They'd have to do a thing called voter outreach instead of voter shaming, or it's what it's devolved to now, which is democracy shaming. They're literally shaming people for participating in democracy. You don't get to participate in democracy because you're a third party. Well, fuck you. That's called democracy. And so, yes, I do. And I get to vote my conscience. And we'll be right back.
That's a good break. That's a good ad break right there. That's solid. If you're on a radio show, that would be the way to go. Hey, one of the reasons why we came in today is because we wanted to talk about the Alex Jones situation. I know you were not just a vocal critic of Alex Jones, you spit in his face on live internet.
Joe, I did not spit in his face. That was completely involuntary.
He coughed and liquid came out of your mouth. And
as you know, Alex Jones is hilarious. There's no doubt. There's no denying that.
He's occasionally very hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I told you what happened. I was walking up. He's having this. They're just about to go fisticuffs the whole time.
Yeah.
And as I walk up, he goes, "Hey, I'm just trying to be nice."
And you had a spit take.
And I had a mouthful of iced tea, and that was that. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Good story. When Trump meant to say would. And he actually said
wouldn't.
Yeah, he actually, what did he say? I don't see any reason why they would, but he meant to say wouldn't. Yeah, that was one of the worst lies I think anybody has ever told on television in front of millions of people. That was a disturbing lie because in the context of the words and the way he was communicating, it's very clear. It's very clear he meant to say would.
It was disconcerting to me for a different reason. It was disconcerting to me because it showed that they got him to cave.
Yeah, someone talked to him. Someone pulled him aside and said, "Do you understand what the fuck is going on here?"
By the way, when they go, "Oh, Trump contradicted our intelligence communities in public in Helsinki, and that's treason." No, asswipe, that's not treason. The president sets our foreign policy. You're not supposed to contradict the fucking president. Whatever the president says goes, and I hate fucking saying this because I'm not a fucking fan of Donald Trump, but god damn it, do we all lose our head and think that the unelected spies run our foreign policy? They do not.
Yeah, spies.
Spies.
Our spies.
Unelected.
Yeah.
So, and the ones who let us into Iraq, let's not forget that. The very dude, anyway, do you ever play that video? I played almost weekly on my show of Robert Mueller lying about weapons of mass destruction to Congress to get us into the Iraq war.
Well, he was misinformed at the time. He wasn't aware of all the information, and him along with Colin Powell and many others were.
They're just good guys who did that bad information.
People,
Good people do it bad.
Those no-bid contracts that Halliburton got for billions and billions of dollars, it's just because they were the right ones for the job. I mean, why have bids when you've got Halliburton and you've got a guy who's really close to Halliburton and Dick Cheney, who used to be the CEO of Halliburton as the vice president? You got a sweet deal here. Take advantage of it.
Halliburton gave Dick Cheney a $30 million down payment when he became vice president.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Trying to help you out. I know you like to go duck hunting. Give you a nice gun. Don't shoot your friend in the face. I used to do a bit about that, too. He shot his friend in the face, and his friend apologized. Yeah, that's how gangster Dick Cheney is. I should have been there. I look like a bird. The whole thing was so fucking crazy. We were talking about Alex Jones.
Oh, okay. So he's being deplatformed.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like across the board, like it's almost, they waited for Apple, it seems like. And when Apple pulled them from iTunes, then, YouTube had danced with it, right? They'd given them some strikes. It was really recently, like within the last couple of months.
Facebook, too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Facebook had given them some strikes, and YouTube gave them some strikes, and people are like, hey, there was some, I felt like almost like unfounded speculation that they would remove him from the platform. I'm like, they're never going to remove him. That's crazy. That's too far. And then all of a sudden, boom, everybody in one fell swoop. Spotify remove him? They were going to. They did.
Right?
iTunes removed him. There's a loophole, though, that I saw an article today where people want nothing but less than total destruction. That Apple attacked Alex Jones and got rid of him, but they offered him a safety net in the form of the app that he has on their app store. That so they were trying to take that down too, like take down the app.
His show became instantly way more popular.
Oh, I'm sure.
So again, the unintended consequences. I try to tell people that I'm not defending Alex Jones. I'm defending the principle of freedom of speech. People who are convicted of killers and who are on death row, they still get their freedom of speech. You're allowed to print articles, and they're allowed to have. You know what I mean? They're still allowed. Well,
he's allowed to still. I mean, he hasn't been silenced. He has his website,
but
he can put his show out on his website.
Correct.
He can host it from his website, and it can all be fine. But these major media companies now, they just decided, we've had enough. We don't want this on. And here's the thing: like, I don't know what he said that there was a straw that broke the camel's back. It seemed like it's not a recent statement that he said.
Well, let's just go to the court transcripts and we'll figure out. Oh, there wasn't. There wasn't a court.
No court.
Oh, there's no hearing or nothing.
Process.
There wasn't a judicial hearing. There was no. Come on. They just what? They let some jagoff billionaire in the middle of the night on a whim fucking do this? Is that what happened? Yes.
Do you think that's what it is? That was some billionaire, or do you think it's the middle managers and the executives at all these giant tech companies that just decided?
I don't know. It's definitely the government tells Facebook what to do a lot of times, right? And so they bow to the government all the time because they don't want to be regulated,
right?
So that's why they just started having hearings with that's why they had those hearings. Should we regulate Facebook?
Right.
So
those hearings, by the way, were fucking bizarre. Yes. It was like a guy pretending to be human.
Yes.
It was like some sort of a robot or an alien. The way he would sip water, he would take it like this and like, who fucking sips water? It was like a guy spitting dip into a glass. He would go like this. Like, there was the weirdest little sips. Someone should make a compilation of Zuckerberg's sips of water. They were so strange. Like,
whoever is that guy who makes the compilations of your show, he does a good job. He does a funny job on those.
This is me. This is my Zuckerberg impression.
Okay.
No, Senator. No, sir. There. Watch this sip. Watch that sip. Give me another one of those. Oh, there is one. They have them.
Yeah. Oh, somebody already.
There is a drinking water compilation.
Of course there is.
Oh my God!
Watch him sip. Who fucking sips water like that?
It's like he has to think about it.
Yeah. Act normal. Be human. Humans drink water. Drink the water.
Look how slowly he tilted that glass. And him and the guy behind him have the same color tie.
That's the guy they're going to shoot in the head.
He's keeping eye contact while he's drinking the water. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
He's trying to, at least.
He doesn't want to be disrespectful.
This is fantastic.
Strange. That whole thing was so strange. It was so.
Hey, what
strange.
a better guy to protect us from fake news and tell us what's real news and what has integrity and what doesn't than a guy who made a couple of $1 billion off a stolen idea from his friends. I mean, I think that's the perfect guy to safeguard.
Is that the true story? Is that what he actually did?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what was in the movie, right?
That was in the movie. That's what I know.
I didn't see the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know the story, though, was that he ripped people off, that it wasn't his idea, but he was the one who figured out a way to wrestle it free and, I don't know, get rich as fuck.
But this is, Matt Taibbi wrote an article on the 2nd, August 2nd about this, and there's been a lot of people being deplatformed from Facebook that you don't know about.
Like who?
Like this isn't like, so here's what he's... They shut down lots of other sites at the behest of the government and Israel, like the Atlantic Council. So pages like Black Elevation, they got shut down. A page called Mindful Being, they got shut down. Facebook also wiped out No Unite the Right To, which is a page appearing to advertise a counter rally on the upcoming anniversary of the violence in Charlottesville. So they shut that down too. Matt Taibbi, let me just give you a quick quote from his article. He says, Facebook was helped in its efforts to wipe out these dangerous memes by the Atlantic Council, on whose board you'll find confidence-inspiring names like Henry Kissinger, CIA Chief Michael Hayden, former acting CIA head Michael Morrell, and former Bush-era Homeland Security Chief Michael Chertoff. These people now have their hands on what is essentially a direct lever over nationwide news distribution. It's hard to overstate the potential mischief that lurks behind this union of internet platforms and would-be government censors. Ooh. Can I just read you one more paragraph? Because this is exactly what we're talking about. He says, it is already a scandal that these de facto private media regulators have secret algorithmic processes that push down some news organizations in favor of others, which they do. Witness the complaints by outlets like Alternet, Truthdig, and others that big platforms have been de-emphasizing alternative sites in the name of combating fake news. But this week's revelation is worse. When Facebook works with the government and wannabe Star Chamber organizations like the Atlantic Council to delete sites on national security grounds using secret methodology, it opens the door to nightmare possibilities that you'd only find in dystopian novels. So he goes on, and it's awesome what he says, but
we would have more comfort if they would. I mean, there's no, like, one of the things that they're doing is they use that blanket term hate speech. Yeah.
So, by the way, they're trying to put a bill. Have you heard about this in Congress to make police a protected class of people? So if you say shit about them, now it's considered hate speech. Did you know that?
What?
Yeah, they're trying to make people. Yes.
So fuck the police would be
considered hate speech.
So they would just retroactively arrest NWA.
They could.
What about Ice-T? He was a cop killer. Remember?
Right.
I'm a motherfucking cop killer.
And so now, if you do have a rally that's against the police, that's a hate rally.
Yeah.
And they can take your YouTube channel down if you said hate stuff about the cops and stuff.
Wow.
So that's where we are. Hate speech. The fuck? How come I'm not allowed to hate shit? By the way,
right.
I hate Nazis. Can I say I hate fucking
Nazis?
Hate
speech.
I hate the KKK. Can I say I hate them?
That's hate
right?
speech. You strongly dislike the KKK. You can strongly dislike something.
When I was a kid, I hated the fucking Dodgers. I know.
Hate speech.
Because I was a Cubs fan, and the Dodgers always kicked our ass.
Hate speech. Yeah, hate speech is a strange blanket term, almost like drugs. You know, like drugs is caffeine, but it's also heroin. You know, it's like drugs.
What's wrong with hate? I don't understand. There's hate out there. So what?
Yeah.
So what's wrong? So, by the way,
But it's a bad way of expressing things. Like hate speech it's not a good descriptive. Because
I agree.
When you stop, what does it entail? Like, you know, I had a conversation with a woman at YouTube about Sam Harris and Douglas Murray in a podcast where they had a conversation and someone put it on their YouTube channel in their playlist. Just put it in their playlist, and they got a community guideline strike.
Oh my God!
I asked why, and the woman said very cleanly it was hate speech. And I said, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Did you listen to it? Or is it two intellectuals? There's two public intellectuals discussing immigration and some of the problems that Europe is having right now, and you decided that that's hate speech, and you don't even know what they said." But the fact that she so confidently described it in that way sort of it sort of embodies what this problem is that they have these blanket terms they're allowed to throw on problems, and there's a million other fires to put out, so there's no more need to put any more consideration into this. This guy's a problem. This is problematic. This is hate speech. Shut it down.
And people don't realize how bad it is, Joe. You do, because you know this story.
Yeah.
But people go, oh, good for Alex Jones. He shouldn't be able to do that stuff, what he's doing. Not good. I'm like, do you not understand that this is the shot across the bow, that if they can do this to Alex Jones, that they're coming. I've already been trashed by the establishment media, by the Washington Post, by CNN. I've already been equated to pedophiles and those kind of things and conspiracy theorists. And I've been in articles with Alex Jones. They've done it to me. Mm-hmm. So because I tell the truth about the war.
Right.
And so the antidote to bad speech, if you really hate what Alex Jones is doing, the antidote to bad speech is not censorship. The antidote to bad speech is more speech. If you think
good speech.
If you think
Yes.
what Alex Jones is doing needs to be debunked, create a Facebook page called Debunking Alex Jones and debunk him.
Right.
You know, Kyle Kalinske does that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
People do that stuff all the time. That's how you convert. If you're afraid of an idea, you don't shut down the idea. You expose the idea and you debunk it.
But if you have a private platform and you own this, and you start a business, and your business is putting up YouTube videos, and you decide that someone is putting up something that's hurtful and damaging and racist, and it could be used to attack large groups of people, and then you see like all the craziness that's been connected to the alt-right movement, and you associate that with this individual, do you have to keep that on your platform? I mean, there's no regulation right now. It's not like the public utilities or...
It should be, though. That's my point. My point is that 70% of the people get their news from Google and Facebook, and they're a monopoly, right? So they have monopolistic powers.
70%?
Yeah, that was a stat I read today. So you can't... it's like, well...
I was reading that too. I don't know if I believe it.
Hey, they took
Stretch.
Yeah, they took...
Why do you think it's a stretch?
It's a lot of... If it says 45% of the people get it straight from Facebook, that means 150 million people are on Facebook every single day.
Yeah, I think that's
not accurate.
No, but I think that's right.
But when they get their news...
We don't. The 3 people in this room aren't, so that's 3 people right here that aren't.
But I get my news from Google.
Mm-hmm.
I have that Google app on my phone, and every day I go to it in the morning when I'm taking a shit, and I go over like, what's crazy today? What's happening? Oh, new Porsche coming out.
Putting it in
crazy?
one sentence.
What did Sacha Baron Cohen do?
One sentence is
Well,
tough.
let's see what they said.
I just looked at it. That's what it said. 45% get it from Facebook. And
but
if you
according
add Google,
to, is it a Gallup poll?
It was according to their stats, and I went back to read another Rolling Stone article to find out where
and
they
Rolling
got that
Stone,
from.
right? Yeah.
And it's a bunch of like Facebook article selling advertisements, and trying to find the data.
So even if you quibble with those, we can't deny. Like Alex Jones cannot now go, well, just go to the other YouTube. There isn't another YouTube. Hey, just go to the other Facebook. There isn't another. So we have to recognize that the way we are organized as a society, that the town square is now owned by corporations that need to be regulated, right? Like before, when AT&T was the phone carrier for everybody, they couldn't go, I'm not going to give Alex Jones a phone service because I don't like the shit he's saying.
Right.
You can't, you can't deny services, somebody, all that stuff.
But that's not really a valid comparison, because the phone service wasn't distributing information to people.
Right.
Like the phone service is just a method of communication. It was just a utility. What he's able to do through InfoWars is, if you've got him on your platform, he's going to say some things, and he's going to use your platform to say some things that, might not be true and might be crazy. So you got to decide, like, when does it become a problem? And I think where they drew the line was Sandy Hook.
So here's what I say, Joe. We need to treat these as public utilities, because they are, right? Facebook, there is no alternative. There is no alternative to YouTube. We need to regulate them. It's long overdue, by the way. And they are monopolies. It's obvious to everyone that they're monopolies. But when you invent something called WhatsApp and then Facebook buys it for $20 billion, there's a monopoly. There's no way to compete with these people. So these are monopolies. They need to be regulated, and people need to be protected. And that's where we need to go, because right now we're leaving it up to the whims of a billion. Like you say, hey, if Alex Jones really did some shit that was wrong and he should be taken off, or his free speech should be abridged for it, Do it. Let's see it go to a court or go to a thing or go. People go, well, he doxes people, and if doxing's illegal, he should be prosecuted. If that's what happened, but you shouldn't take away.
Did he dox people?
That's what they're saying. They're saying he doxed people from Newtown or whatever. From the school shooting, so that's what they're saying.
Talked about the individuals
that he
families?
gave their addresses and their names. That's what they're saying, that he doxed.
Okay, but let's find out if he actually did that, because that sounds crazy.
I don't know if he did,
but they're not saying what he actually did. This is what's crazy. I keep hearing that he promoted the idea that Sandy Hook was
false.
It was false, and that it was a false flag, and that these were all actors.
Right.
I don't know if he actually said that. I think what he actually said was, I don't know if that happened. I think that's what he actually said. And people are saying, well, that's promoting the idea that it was a hoax.
So what?
But I want to know if that's what he really said. See, I don't know if that's even the case, because I've heard it written that he promoted the idea that Sandy Hook was a conspiracy, but they're not quoting. When they say that, there's no quotes. There's no Sandy Hook was a hoax. Those kids were actors. Those kids are not dead. I don't see that anywhere.
Right.
But they keep attributing that to him without quotations.
But again, if there was some kind of due process, we could go back and look at the transcript and we would know this.
Not only that, if during this whole time where he's being tried, he was still able to be on YouTube and have his videos, he could show in his videos that he didn't say that. He could show what he actually said and tell you what he actually said and show clips. He can't do that anymore. So now the narrative is completely in the hands of the mainstream media, 100%. So the Alex Jones narrative is being taken 100% out of his hands. And now it's in the mainstream media, and now there's Sandy Hook denier, conspiracy theorist, right-wing lunatic, all these different things, which some of it, I mean, Alex is pretty fucking nuts.
My point is, we've had nuts people they still have that. When I was a kid, Joe, maybe you remember, Johnny Carson used to go ape shit about the National Enquirer.
Yes.
Do you remember that? And it was a big deal. He would stop his show, and I'm putting my foot down about this.
Yeah.
They still have the National, and nobody said take it out of the supermarkets. Nobody was like, we got to ban that newspaper because we can't handle the ideas from this newspaper. They're still right there. You go to Ralph's, they're right there.
Yeah.
They're the last thing you see before they leave. They're right at the eye level for kids.
Yeah.
Nobody says take away the National Enquirer. I went to Facebook. They still have a Facebook page, National Enquirer.
Do they?
Yes. So does the World News Daily. And you know what the first news story was that came up on World News
Daily?
Was a British man can only defecate through his mouth. That was the first story that came up. The first story. I didn't have to look for it. British man defecates through his mouth. I'm like, this is like South Park.
Right. Yeah. And it's not like you want them to be taken down as well.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is like World News Daily and Star Magazine and all those, they've sort of they're a joke. Like, it's not real. The Enquirer's not real. But we know that. But it's not, it's just
Somebody's
implied.
buying those. Somebody's buying those.
Right. But are they kind of buying them just for fun and entertainment?
Somebody watches professional wrestling.
Here it goes. Lawsuit quotes Jones saying, so Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, is a synthetic, completely fake with actors, in my view, manufactured. Okay.
I would show the video.
January 13th, 2015. The lawsuit quotes Jones saying, so Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake with actors, in my view, manufactured. Yeah.
You actually nailed that impression.
I spent a lot of time with that dude drunk.
There's
He's
like
that's a real problem. Saying something like that is crazy. But his whole business is saying things that are sometimes right and saying things that are sometimes absolutely wrong. And that's it's all wild and it's all globalists. And you ever seen that song that they did where these guys took his actual words and rants, but then they have like this like emo song singing the words?
No,
it's fucking genius. Would we get pulled off of YouTube if we play that? Let's find out if we get yanked for this one, because it's brilliant. Because it's a parody, but it's so
That's an indie folk song.
Yeah.
You said emo song. I don't know if there's two.
Indie folk, emo. It's just some low testosterone music. Listen to this. Listen to this.
And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
Watch this.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers, scum. They're on giant death factories keeping babies alive.
What?
Taking the audio out.
Oh, you taking the audio off? Alex Jones rants as an indie folk song for people that are just listening to this. You gotta Google this because we removed the sound from YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Eat babies. We want to eat babies. We love Satan. We want to eat babies. I have them on video. That's just what you just said. I have Hillary Clinton on video. His face. Listen to this. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur. It's a song. Literal vampire potbelly goblins.
Come on.
Oh my God. I think there's something about his struggle right now that's representative of the chaotic world that we live in. That he does have this giant voice, that he does have this giant following, and that it is this his actual words come out in song like that and are so hysterical, and that they think that somehow or another yanking this guy off all these platforms is gonna like remove it. Do they understand the Streisand effect? Because this is just there's gonna be another way. But
What's the Streisand effect?
Barbara Streisand had a house in Malibu, this giant ass house, and they took pictures of it. And she went apeshit and, complained to all these, newspapers and complained to the police and everything that they're taking photos of her house and get the fuck out of here. I'm Barbara Streisand. And because of that, it became a giant story that Barbara Streisand is pissed that someone's showing her house. And they're like, well, it must be a hell of a house. Where is it? And then there it is. The Streisand effect is a phenomenon. There's the house whereby an attempt to hide, remove, or censor a piece of information has the unintended consequence of publicizing the information more wildly, usually facilitated by the internet.
Okay.
Yeah. They want to eat babies.
No, I thought you guys... But again, people make the false equation. Oh, you're defending Alex Jones. I'm not defending.
You're defending free speech.
I'm defending free speech, and I understand the argument that, hey, it's a private corporation. I get that. I get that. But if you took a look at the bigger picture, everyone thinks the internet should be a public utility. I mean, most people do.
Right.
And that's what they're upset, that they're not treating it like a public utility. Obama administration did. They decided to at the last minute. Mm-hmm. And so if you think the internet should be a public utility, I think YouTube and Facebook should be a public utility also.
But there's an opening for other people to make their own YouTube. Like make a version of it. If you have sufficient capital.
But you don't. And if you do start it, they'll just buy you out. Like I just showed you the example of WhatsApp with they give you $19 billion, whatever they paid for, was some crazy. So they just eat up their competition. Right now we need a Teddy Roosevelt to come along and break up all these monopolies. It's never going to happen. The end of the empire is coming.
So here's the question: like, is there a valid parallel, a valid comparison? Like, are there people that have things that are more hateful that are on YouTube that haven't been deplatformed? Is it the influence that he has that's terrifying? Is it the fact that he's a figurehead for this kind of stuff? Is that what it is? Like that this whole InfoWars movement is in some people's mind a figurehead for this pro-Trump thing that they're trying to stop and silence? Like, what is it?
I don't know. It's very curious that it all happened at the same time, right? And because in 1996 there was a law passed that actually insulates the platforms from being sued. Did you know that? So like
Platform. So if someone puts
So
up
if-
something,
and so like say he puts something up that leads to someone getting killed, right, on
YouTube
Facebook.
can't get in trouble.
You can't sue YouTube.
Right.
You can't sue Facebook for it. That's in that 1996 law. So there's that. So I get that they're a private company, but again, they have the protection now of the law.
Right.
They have Congress protecting them, so they have that's a type of regulation you're regulated from. You can't sue them.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm looking for this tweet by Glenn Greenwald that really, because if we're going to take down, here I'll find it. Here it is. He says. There's been a tactic of censors for centuries. They start with someone who is so utterly hated and marginalized that everyone is blinded by their hatred for the first censorship target that they cheer and forget that they're endorsing a principle and power that will then expand.
yeah.
And so right now
First they
we're
came for the Jews.
yeah, right now we're
So-
allowing the whim of billionaires in the middle of the night to decide who gets to be on these monopolistic platforms and who doesn't.
Yeah.
If there was 10 YouTubes, no one would care. But
Right.
there isn't. There's one YouTube. There's one Facebook. And they are monopolies, and that's the world we live in right now. And that's why they're doing whatever the government wants them to, because they don't want the government to regulate them. That's why he went there and was sipping the water like that and trying to make eye contact and be nice, because he doesn't want them to regulate him. He'll do it for. Julian Assange in 2010 gave a speech, which I saw recently on a plane, where he predicted this. He was like, the corporations are an extension of the government, and they will do the censorship in the future. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
So do you think it's the government that's censoring Alex Jones? Because I would think that the government that's in power currently would want to keep Alex Jones in position because he's a supporter of Trump. He's a supporter of,
Why is Trump going after Julian Assange? Is it because he's afraid he'll expose him someday?
I don't know.
Why is he allowing the CIA to do that, to go after Julian Assange? And that just shows you how shitty the journalists are in America, because not one of them are standing up for Julian Assange, and they're all pretending that when Trump says mean things about Jim Acosta, that somehow that's this unbelievable violation of our freedom of speech and our press, and he's got. You son of a bitch. You don't care. If you cared about freedom of the press, you would say something about Julian Assange, and no one is saying. What lie has Julian Assange ever printed? Never
Nothing
never
that they
been
can prove.
Never. What did Julian Assange do? He revealed that our election was being rigged by the Democratic Party, not Russia, but by the Democratic Party, and that is a sin you can't commit. You cannot tell the truth about the powerful, and that's what's happening right now. And he revealed the CIA has all those spying techniques that they can get your TV to listen to you, your phone, Vault 7, all that stuff. He revealed that's why they want to get him. And Trump, I just think that Trump is just, he's not really clued in. Right? He's glad to let the generals do the job and his underlings. He doesn't really want to. He wants to paint broad strokes and lets everyone, you want to kill Julian Assange? Go ahead. I don't give a F. That's, I think, how he feels. I don't think it's his plan to do it, but everybody else underneath him wants to, and certainly the intelligence community. And everyone forgets this. Chuck Schumer went on Rachel Maddow's show like 2 years ago and right out in public said that Trump is making a mistake by crossing the intelligence community, because when you mess with them, they have 6 ways to Sunday to mess with you back. Holy shit. And nobody cared that he said that. So what he's saying is the president should be afraid of unelected spooks. Unelected bureaucrats. He should be afraid of them. That is, and no one went, what? What the F? Could you imagine saying that about Barack Obama? Hey, Barack Obama better be nice to the CIA. They're going to F with him.
as an elected official. Yeah.
Yes.
Someone as an elected official saying that, almost sanctioning it.
Yes. And then we have Eugene Robinson in the Washington Post writing an article begging the deep state to undermine Trump's foreign policy. Did you see that article?
No, that's crazy.
Pulitzer Prize winner. First, they spend all their life denying there is a deep state, and then Eugene Robinson writes an article begging the deep state to defy President Trump.
Why they're so blinded by ideology that they don't see the consequences of this?
There's unintended consequences, and here they are. And they're coming at. They've already come for me. They're already coming for the left. This is how this works. So. again, that's why I warn all my friends about the Russiagate nonsense. Chomsky said, if you care about the people meddling in our election, Russia would be the last place I would look. The first place to look is concentrated capital. That's what dictates who are going to be our government. That's why we don't have the things the rest of the world has, because we have a capital has captured our government, which is why we don't have Medicare for all, which is why we don't have free college, which is why we don't have an infrastructure plan, which is why we're in 8 wars. Meanwhile, half the country's poor or low income, 63% of the country can't afford a $1,000 emergency, and a quarter of all kids are in poverty. In the richest country in the world, Joe, what do you call a system that takes the richest country in the world and renders half of its population poor or low income? That's a failed fucking system. And that's what we're living in right now. And it's failing worldwide.
Now, if you were someone like Google, though, or who owns YouTube, or if you were iTunes or any of these platforms that have Spotify, when you get an overwhelming volume of complaints about someone who's in the news right now, because the fact that Alex Jones is being sued by the Sandy Hook parents, this is what started this all off. Because, I mean, to people, this is so egregious. These poor parents lost their children, and here's this guy
it's horrible.
saying that it's fake and that they don't want that on their platform. So would you think that they should just delete the episode that has that says that? Should they do that, or should they allow that episode to stream?
Here's a solution. If he did do something in a video that is illegal, take that video down until it gets adjudicated. You don't deplatform him 100. You don't give him the death penalty.
Right. So, okay, what about like Stormfront? What if you got like some white supremacist group that's calling for violence against people? Do you take them down?
I think you would, again, you would have to, I would like to see some kind of adjudication. You know, again,
Well, the blanket policies are things saying things like hate speech. The
right,
problem
again,
with that
it's
is
all
like,
interpretation. And by just a week ago, Mark Zuckerberg was defending it. He was defending that we have Holocaust deniers on our platform.
Right.
Holocaust deniers, Joe.
Yeah.
And that's not fake news. That's not, you're not going to take that down. Like I just told you, they have guys defecating out of their mouth. They have this, they have the National Enquirer. They're still cool.
Right.
So this is a very squiggly line, Joe. And again, there's no board, there's no adjudication. It's not transparent.
It's not transparent. It's not rational either. This is not a rational debate.
Let me just give you one more thing about what he says. When
who says?
This is Matt Taibbi. He says the sheer market power of these companies over information flow has always been the real threat. This is why breaking them up should have long ago become a national priority. Instead, as was obvious during the Senate hearing with Mark Zuckerberg earlier this year, politicians are more interested in using than curtailing the power of these companies. The platform, for their part, will cave rather than be regulated. The end game here couldn't be clearer. This is how authoritarian marriages begin, and people should be very worried.
They should be worried. They should be worried, especially if this does escalate. I understand that people who believe that he's a Sandy Hook denier and they read those words, they don't want him to have a platform. They don't want him to be able to spread that hate. I understand that they would feel like, imagine being one of those parents and you lost your kid and you're seeing this guy on TV or on YouTube saying it's all fake. It's outrageous and it's repulsive.
I agree.
And it's offensive, and I get that, but I think it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous to silence people that may or may not have any other recourse in terms of like. He doesn't have the ability to defend himself. He doesn't have the ability to make a video about it unless he puts it on his own website, and then who's going to watch it? Like the stuff that they're doing with YouTube, it's a slippery slope, you know, and especially when they use these terms like hate speech. They're not like when you say like, what are they saying? They're saying that he violated their terms, correct?
Yes.
So what are those terms that he violated, and what is a specific violation? Like, what are the words that he said where you were like, enough is enough? And if that's the case, how did you let him get away with saying all this other shit for years and years? And when do you draw this line? Like, just that video that we played. You know, they smell like sulfur. They want to eat babies. They're screaming, I love Satan, and they want to eat babies. Like, wow. Where does the line get drawn? I don't think that should be up to subjectivity. I think that should be a very, very hard question that's answered with very clear facts.
You should have an adversarial judicial process with an impartial judge or jury.
Right. And how would you even get someone impartial? Instead, they have in-house decisions.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you heard that. I mean, you heard Matt Taibbi delineate the people who are involved in this stuff. And by the way, Facebook's taken down pages of people who are Palestinians because the Israeli government tells them to, and they do it. So you know about that, right?
I had heard about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's them doing the bidding. The government says take it down. Okay, take it down. All right, they don't get free speech. Okay, because I don't want the government to get mad at me. Because we're making so much goddamn money right now. I don't want the government to get mad at us. That's what Facebook and YouTube is doing.
See, if I would like that if someone, I'm not saying that no one should be taken down. If someone's calling for the death of all black people, and like maybe it's not a good place to give them a platform. But I feel like the problem that I'm having with this is these things like, air quotes, hate speech. Because I told you that they said that about Sam Harris and Douglas Murray. Now, that is fucking crazy. So when does it stop being hate speech? Like, when do you draw the line? Is it mildly offensive? Is that hate speech? Like, where does it go? Where does it go where
Well,
you're
why
not
aren't you allowed to
have
hate people?
opinions?
I don't understand why I don't get that. Do you
Right.
get this? I'm not being a dick. I honestly, why aren't you allowed to hate things?
Right.
I understand
You're
that.
calling for action, I think, is the issue.
So a call for action might be. I mean, again, if it's a legal term, then
Right. This is not a legal term, though. When they blanket things with hate speech, like we were saying, with calling something a drug, this is an illegal drug. Well, what if caffeine becomes an illegal drug? Then is that the same as meth? It's clearly not. There's different things. So when you say hate speech, and you also lump Douglas Murray having an intellectual conversation with Sam Harris about immigration, you lump that in.
Well, that's the kind of what I'm
without-
talking
yeah,
about.
you
And so,
can't-
did you know that right before 4th of July, there was a newspaper, I think it was in Texas, and so they wanted to, for the 4th of July, they wanted to post the Declaration of Independence. So they posted the first half of it.
Yeah.
Did you know about this?
Yes.
Facebook gave them a strike for hate speech.
Yes.
Hate speech. They gave them a strike. And so now they were like,
That was an algorithm, though, right? That picked up some of the phrasing.
some of the phrasing in there about slavery and stuff like that,
yeah.
and them being animals or something like that. I don't something like that. I'm not sure what it was, but and then the newspaper said, now we're afraid to post the second half of the Declaration because we'll get a second strike and they might pull our whole page. Wow. Yeah. So again,
But they released that strike, correct?
So
Didn't they?
yeah.
I
So
think
what
they
is
did.
this? But Joe, what is this idea that I need a nanny state to protect me from ideas?
Well, I think they're worried about the power of propaganda, and it's just they don't know exactly what the consequences of suppressing that power of propaganda are. I think that's really the primary issue. They're worried that a guy like Alex Jones, who already has this massive following, is what he's done by calling Sandy Hook fake may be awful. I believe it is, but is it enough to completely deplatform him?
It's
and
not-
how are they justifying?
Well, even
it?
if it was, let's say it was. Let's just
Okay.
say you and I agree that it is.
Okay.
Shouldn't there still be some kind of a process?
There should be.
That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be, even if we agreed. And again, I hate that. I hate it as much as you hate it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And then people are going to, I know it's, Joe, last time I was on your show, I said people are going to take what I'm saying right now and twist it. And that's exactly what they did to me last
Did
time.
they?
So I'm sure people
Who
are,
did? Who took it and twisted it?
I don't
What did they
want
do?
to elevate.
Well, we don't have to name names, but what did they do?
They said they twisted what we were when we were talking about Seth Rich. They twisted,
Yeah.
and I said, all I did was cover it on my show. Until this day, people still say I was pushing it. I do a new show. I covered it,
Well, even discussing it.
and even you can't even discuss. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't cover it, couldn't discuss it, and so that's exactly what happened. Somebody cut me saying that and cut some other stuff and put it together, and I was like, son of a bitch. But so what are you going to do, right? So what are you going to do? So. So I just want people to know this is, again, I'm just as offended as everybody. I'm saying we need to have these things be public utilities for a lot of reasons. And that, exactly what Matt Taibbi said, what the end game here is very clear. And they want to be able to censor people they want to be able to censor. And the first people they're going to come after is left-wing organizations. They're going to come after Black Lives Matter. They've already come after lefties like me, Joe.
Why do you think they're going to come after Black Lives Matter?
What do you mean? They're hate speech against the police. You kidding me? They already said they're controlled by the Russians.
Who is they? Who is they saying that, and who's they going to come after them? What do you mean by that?
So, well, the FBI will infiltrate them. I'm sure they already have. You know how that works.
Yeah, they probably already have.
So you know how all that stuff works. So that's how that stuff works. And they discredit them. And then they will commit violence in their name and say, oh, look, Black Lives Matters are violent. No, that was a cop doing it. You know how that's what happened up in DAPL. You know, that's the kind of stuff they do up there. And then
agent provocateurs.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Right.
Well,
so,
by the way, I learned about that from Alex Jones.
So that's the problem with Alex Jones. He's right about stuff sometimes.
Yes, and well, he was way more right about stuff in the past. Alex himself, and I've talked to him about this, says he drinks too much and he's getting too crazy. He needs to go on a diet and exercise and start getting his life in order. And he takes things too far sometimes. And
he should take
goes
some
off
vitamin
the
pills.
rails. He goes off the rails. Like he and I had a conversation, but he got mad at me for saying that I didn't think George Soros was a Nazi. And so he had this whole thing where he ranted, and then we talked back and forth, and he apologized, and he said I sometimes
You're the one
take
taking
things
DMT,
too
Joe.
far.
You're the one taking DMT,
Yeah,
Joe.
I'm talking to aliens.
I didn't say that. You did.
But I think he recognizes that sometimes he's just caught up in that cycle of outrage. That cycle of outrage, there's no room there's no room to step back and to sort of reset. It's just constant outrage, constantly under attack, and then there's these words that get thrown around that sort of lose their meaning, like globalists, and shills, and this sort of like attitude that there's this cabal of evil that is trying to take over the world. And at one point, Alex had this idea that they were going to try to kill off most people.
Yeah.
And you remember that?
I heard about it.
There was this idea that they wanted to euthanize, or it was genocide. They wanted to break it down to, what is the word where they talk about doing that? To talk about reducing the population. There's like some sort of a conspiracy theorist term of reduction of population to a sustainable number of super evil geniuses that could live forever. And they wanted to get it down to 500 million people worldwide that can live for 1 million years or some crazy shit. But I think that's that whole cycle of constant outrage and everything's a conspiracy, and you get just whacked out and caught up in it. If you go back to Alex's earlier videos, I met Alex in 98, I believe. And back then, Alex was going after George W. Bush when George W. Bush was running for president. And he was saying that this guy he's a puppet, and that he's a puppet of the CIA, and he supports genocide, and he was showing up at campaign rallies, and they were arresting him. He was anti-right wing. I mean, he was anti what he thought was this globalist agenda. He also infiltrated Bohemian Grove when everybody thought that Bohemian Grove was nonsense. There's nothing really going on. He's like, no, these really rich people are getting together with heads of state and foreign dignitaries, and they're dressing up like fucking druids, and they have an effigy that they burn in front of the owl god Molech, and people are like, he's crazy. Then he releases the video, and oh my God, they really do that. He did some good work. The World Trade Organization protests in his video, 9/11, A Road to Tyranny. Right after 9/11, he releases this video that shows that the World Trade Organization protests were infiltrated by these agent provocateurs who are most likely government agents with government agent boots on, by the way. He shows this in the video. They smash windows. They're all wearing masks. They light things on fire. Then they all hole up in one house. They negotiate with the police and are all eventually released. This is all done he proved all this. He showed all how this is going. Look at these peaceful protesters. Then the consequences of that, they established a no protest line at the WTO where you couldn't go by with a pin on. If you tried to get through with a pin that said WTO with a red line through it, they told you could not wear that pin. You can't come through here. This is a no protest zone. And he's like, this is the consequences of this kind of censorship, and this is how they establish the censorship. They make it seem like your organization is violent and dangerous by introducing violent and dangerous elements in the form of undercover police officers or military. They smash windows, tip over newspaper stands, and fucking create chaos so that the government has to come in because now we have a violent situation. So then the military comes in and arrests protesters and silences the protests so they don't look embarrassing in front of all these people from foreign countries that are coming here to the World Trade Organization.
I didn't know he did that, but yeah.
Dude, he's not wrong always, and he was more right back then. He was also more sane back then. He was more measured and more calm. It wasn't this. He didn't have the big moon face back then either, and he wasn't drinking as much, I don't think, and the screaming and the spitting and you ask him, he'll say, "Well, I'm just overwhelmed by the sheer volume of corruption and all the shit that he sees every day." Look, do you remember he was crying when Trump bombed Syria? He was crying because he was crying that Trump fucked us.
Yeah.
I mean, I really genuinely believe most of the time that he means well. The thing is, when you look for conspiracies everywhere, like everything that's a conspiracy, you're off track. I don't think there's anyone there that can sit down and go, "Stop, hold on, let's examine this in a factual way. Let's cut the hyperbole out, and let's look at what the facts are and where are we getting these facts and why do we think this is happening and why do you think this is fake?" Because that sounds fucking crazy to me. No one's there to do that. If someone was there to do that, I think he probably would be stopped and would examine things and would balance out. Like one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on my podcast when I did was because I wanted people to see the Alex that I know. Because people are like, "How could you know that guy?" I'm like, look at how he is when I get him high and we get drunk and he's laughing about stuff and talking about interdimensional child molesters and all that. Like, this is what I wanted everybody to see. Like, this is Alex Jones. He's a fun guy. It's just that is not a good position to be in, where you're constantly looking for conspiracies everywhere you go. And you might nail a few. But then you might call out a bunch of them that are fake, which not just negates the ones that you nailed, but negates everything you say. As soon as you're one of those guys that everything's a conspiracy and then dead kids aren't really dead and everyone's an actor and like everything that you say that's good, they're going to stop.
My thing is that I focus on the ones that are important, right? That I think, that's right. I care about wars and the lies that are told about wars from the media, which the media pushes every war in my lifetime. So that's the ones I care about. I hear everything you're saying, and I didn't really know. I got to say, God, I didn't really know much about Alex Jones until I met him. Very famously at that incident. I never really watched him. I went home that night and watched some of his videos, which is when I found out some of them are really funny. And so honest to God, I didn't really know much about him. And so I don't even know this stuff. So
see if you can find it, Jamie. Did they pull all that stuff from YouTube, everything? But doesn't someone else have it probably on their channel?
And I never did videos about him or debunk, but I just... it's just he wasn't in my line of sight.
Right. Yeah.
I was busy making fun of MSNBC and CNN. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, it's all very confusing to me, and I don't think he should say those things. I don't think he should say lies about kids not being dead. The horrors of being a parent and your kid was shot in a school shooting, and then some guy is saying that they're 100% actors and fake and. Look,
yeah, that's horrible stuff.
There's a guy who was one of the parents that was a conspiracy theorist until this happened. He was a conspiracy theorist. He believed all that stuff. And then his son was killed. And then they started calling him a fraud and saying he was an actor and saying it never happened and that he's a paid shill. And, and there's a big article about this guy. I mean, you see this guy talk and it's heartbreaking. You read his words. It's heartbreaking. You can't imagine. Your son was murdered in one of the biggest school massacres ever, if not the biggest, right? And here's people running around emailing you and sending you tweets and Facebook messages that you're a fraud and that you work for the globalists and this is all just a plot to take our guns away. It's like, Holy
That's what
shit,
they say
man.
these things are. That's the people who think all these school shootings that they're all set up to so they can take our guns away.
They think that about everything. They thought that about the country music festival shooting in
Vegas?
because they felt like, hey, here's a way to get those people on our side, because those are all the Second Amendment people, is the country music people. What better people to get to turn against the Second Amendment than a bunch of people that are? I mean, I guarantee you, if you had like a red light that went off every time, like on the top of someone's head, if they were a National Rifles Agency, if they were an NRA member in that audience, I bet there'd be a lot of fucking lights. I bet a lot of those people are NRA people. A lot of people are gun owners. I bet if just gun owners, how many people are gun owners? I bet fucking half, at least half the audience. Probably one of the strongest demographics you could find. Country music, gun owners. That's a giant connection. And so the thought was, hey, if this guy, they make this Manchurian candidate, make him gun down all these people. Some people think he didn't even do it. They think they shot him in the room, and then agents did it, and they killed all these people. And then there's bullets coming out of all these different windows and all these different areas. And like, oh my God, it's fucking
No, it's exhausting. I know.
It's exhausting. And it's also horrific, man. I mean, the whole thing's horrific. The idea that they think that the government would create a false flag that, by the way, didn't do anything. Second Amendment's still in place. But that they would create a false flag and they would be willing to gun down. He killed like 50 plus people and shot like 500, something fucking insane like that. That would be they would get together and go, you know what we got to do? We got to get this guy and get him to shoot all these people, and that's how we're going to get rid of guns. It's totally ineffective. It hasn't done anything.
No. Here's the thing, and I'm not the first person to make this point about guns, is people who are big, strong Second Amendment people say that, well, because whenever I advocate for gun control, people say, oh, good, then only the government will have guns, which is, it's not a bad argument, right? It's not. I understand that argument. But the whole point of you keeping your guns to protect yourself from the government is that the government's going to take your rights away, so you need to have your guns to protect your rights. Well, the government already took your rights away. They're already reading your every email. They're already listening on every you already lost your right to privacy. They let you keep your guns while they took the rest of your rights away. So now you still have your guns. Now why don't you go get your rights back? You have your gun. So they're never going to do it, right?
Minority Report was an interesting take on that, right? Like the one day technology to reach a point. For them it was like through those little psychic dudes that we're going to be able to predict future crime.
Right. And then they arrest you for a future crime.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's they already they kind of do that now. They can arrest you for a conspiracy to commit a crime.
Well, you don't even have to have a crime, right? You just have some emails talking shit. I mean, you could have a role-playing thing that you do with your wife. We talk about, listen, you and I, we're Bonnie and Clyde, and we're going to take down the government, and they'll just fucking kick down your door in the middle of the night. Yeah. Who's that comic who had the ICE agents break down his
my
door?
God, that guy. I started following him after that. He made a joke.
Yeah, what was the joke?
Oh, I forget, but that was hilarious.
We'll find
that guy's
out.
pretty funny, by the way, too. That guy's pretty funny.
I
wanted to have him on my
this
show,
guy.
and I forgot. Because that story he tells is hilarious about those ICE they were ICE cops, right?
Yeah.
Coming into his place.
What is his name?
Jake Flores. That's right.
Part-time stand-up comic, podcast host, and self-described pizza delivery guy who, in a strange twist of fate, recently found himself debating immigration policy with 4 Homeland Security agents in his home. The agents paid him an early morning visit last Sunday because of some jokes he tweeted about Cinco de Mayo. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what he said. Here's how Cinco de Mayo works in 2018. White people are allowed to culturally appropriate on the condition that you help destroy ICE. You kill 1 ICE agent, you get to wear a sombrero. 2 kills, you get to wear a poncho.
That's funny.
But the problem
Can't say
is
that.
you can't joke around about killing an agent because
Right.
there's,
So if he had a Sirius XM radio show, he'd be fired right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, they fired Nick DiPaolo
For that.
for saying something very similar to that.
And
Yeah.
so I say about that, it's like, so Nick can't make a joke about someone going into a university, go, hey, the next school shooter, that was his joke. Next school
after
shooter,
the professors.
please go to the Berkeley and go to
Yeah.
the teacher's lounge or something
Right.
like that, right?
Yeah.
Which everyone knows is obviously a joke. He's a goddamn comedian. Jesus.
And he's a right-wing comedian,
And he's a right-wing
too.
comedian.
So-
Everybody,
Yeah.
but you can go on those same radio shows and those same radio stations, and you can advocate for killing hundreds of thousands of people in another country that you don't know, and nobody says shit.
Right.
All the time people do that. People lie about it. So that's the weird thing. We can have a torture program in America. Nobody goes. It's just weird that and then the media goes along. They don't even call it torture. They call it enhanced interrogation techniques because we're doing it. But Nick said that. That's all of a sudden. So it's such a weird, squiggly bullshit line of morality. And now Nick will probably be better off for it anyway.
Yeah, Nick will be better off for it, and he has a podcast now, but I think, unfortunately, he's doing a subscription service, which I try to talk all these guys out of. Because
you can't hear it at all for free?
You have to pay. And
for all of it?
I don't know, but it limits
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, it limits your growth. I mean, he's a famous comedian, so I'm sure he'll get some money, and I know he's probably doing really well with it. But it's impossible to grow. Is it a subscription service? How's it work? Jamie's shaking his head. With
$9.99 on Patreon.
For the
$10 a month?
Or more.
He doesn't give you...
Or more? So, you can start at 10 and then keep adding more?
So no, what we do is we give away all our stuff for free, except we do a couple we maybe do a couple extra hours a week for our patrons.
Yeah.
That's like bonus.
Right.
So you don't want to...
That's not the worst thing in the world. I just think that, and people have different...
Do you do bonus stuff?
No.
No, everything's free?
Everything's free.
You're really lucky. You're super popular.
Yeah, but when I wasn't super popular, it was all free too.
Yeah.
I had it free in the beginning when I was getting 1,000 downloads. It's always been free. I just.
When did it start to kick in for you? When did you start to take off the show?
2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that.
Really?
You say about 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Was it an
really
issue or what is it? You had a special guest on? What was it, you think?
I don't know. It's momentum, just over time. Just always, just constantly doing it, grinding, being in here,
delivering on
3-4 days a week. Yeah, you do your best. Do your best. Get better at it. Make mistakes. Apologize for your mistakes. Keep going.
See, because when I did your show last time, I just you're just in my head ever since. I always you are doing what I want to do. Like you don't. I loved when I go, Joe, because people are always trying to discredit me. I don't know how I got into a position where I have to worry about being discredited. I'm a fucking nightclub jagoff comedian, and I have to worry. That's why you're like, I announce cage fighting. I smoke the pot. I'm not a reputable person. I'm like, I want to be you. I want to be you. That's who I want to be. I'm not a reputable person. Fuck you. You know?
I do my best to be honest. I mean, I approach issues in an honest way, but I'm not your source of reason.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not that guy.
I want to be a provocateur. I want to be the guy on the outside throwing the spitballs. That's who I want to be.
You are doing that.
And that's who I am.
You are doing that.
But somehow I got caught up in this thing where people are going to try to discredit you. God damn it. It's like
I'm confused. I'm confused by this Alex Jones thing because although I don't support a lot of the things that he said, I don't know why more people don't think that this could be a real problem, that they could just throw that hate speech blanket on things. And if I didn't have that experience of talking to that woman where she was describing the Douglas Murray, Sam Harris podcast, which doesn't have a single slur, there's no hateful rhetoric, it's not hate speech. I listened to it. It's just a description. I mean, it's a discussion, rather.
So you have that insight.
I know how calmly and confidently she said it's hate speech. It was like, you know what it was like? Do you remember those old commercials where there was a guy and he was eating with another guy and he was saying that if you buy drugs, you support terrorism?
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? He's like, it's a fact. It's just a fact. F-A-C-T, fact. And he's eating a salad. He's a no-nonsense guy.
Yeah.
Fact. What do you mean it's a fact? It's a fact. F-A-C-T, fact. You buy pot, you're supporting terrorism. But it's basically what she said. It's hate speech. It's basically the same sort of self-righteous indignation.
Certainty,
Yeah, where she didn't, but when I was pressing her on it, it was almost like she was my boss and I couldn't talk to her about it. I'm like, I don't work for you. Do you understand that this kind of, this method of communication that you're accustomed to, this does not apply here. You have to discuss these ideas. I want to know the merit of your thoughts. I want to see where your thought process lies, that you could just throw this hate speech blanket on things. And it turns out there was no thought and there was no consideration. There was no examination. She didn't know the content of the conversation. And her confidence in saying that it was hate speech was merely towing this company line, the same company line that got James Damore fired for the Google memo. You know, you talk to actual evolutionary biologists and people who understand psychology and people who are clinical psychologists. Well, they talk to you about the real differences between men and women and what he actually said in these documents, where he didn't make some sort of a quantitative like a ruling that women are less valuable or that women are worth less money or that women are in any way, shape, or form inferior. He simply wrote about clinical studies that have shown tendencies to gravitate towards different professions, and he even had a page and a half in that about how there's ways that we could encourage more women to get into tech. So it was not negative in any way towards women, but I saw all these people describing it as hateful rhetoric, and then that it was reinforcing harmful gender stereotypes. Like what, with actual studies of science? These are harmful gender stereotypes because they don't add up to your vision of Narnia diversity that only exists in Wakanda and some cloud somewhere that you've put up. These are not real numbers. There's reasons why people gravitate towards certain professions. Some of them are cultural, some of them are biological. They're fascinating to study, but it doesn't mean that a person who becomes a nurse is any better than a person who becomes a carpenter, or a guy who becomes a surgeon is any better than someone who becomes a computer coder. This is not what anyone's saying. What they're saying is there's reasons why people find different things interesting, and some of them might be the amount of testosterone they have in their system, the fact they have XY chromosomes, their genetic history, the history of their family, and the culture that they grew up in. There's all these variables, and these variables are fascinating. But as soon as you say that these variables must even out at the end, we must have an equality of outcome based on gender and based on race. Well, you're not even talking about people anymore. Now you're just talking about something that you need to say in order for you to keep your job, because you want to keep collecting ones and zeros, and you understand that there's this confusion as to why there's not more women that are leaders, why there's not more women that are in tech, why there's not more this, more that. Why don't you really want to concentrate on diversity? You really want to concentrate on fairness? Concentrate on why they're trying to keep Asians out of Harvard. How about that? Because that's some real fucking racism that's going on right now. And no one's saying a word about it because it's about people that are kicking ass. They're kicking ass too hard. So they're trying to make it more difficult. There's a giant class action lawsuit. Asians are suing Harvard because it's more difficult for them to get in than anybody else.
Well, when I was a kid, I was told that they pee in your Coke, and that's I know. I was like,
me Chinese, me play choke.
Now I
me
grew up. I
pee,
know
pee.
that's bullshit. That's just a thing that they would tell us.
Little kids.
It's
It's just
would
rhymes.
say that.
That's all it is. But it's like
Joe,
these same people.
The antidote to if that's to the Charles Murray chat with the antidote to that isn't to censor them. The antidote to that is good speech, more speech.
It wasn't even.
If you wanted to, whatever.
It was a person who put it on their playlist, which is crazy. Someone got a community guideline strike for putting it on their playlist.
That's why I say we need to have it be YouTube, Facebook. These are public utilities. They need to be regulated. And there's no way, there's no getting around it, right? They have super control in our culture.
They have massive impact. But so does CBS, right? So if you say something and CBS fires you, is that legal?
Isn't it funny that Les Moonves is getting in trouble for something he did to an actress instead of him
in the 80s?
Yeah, and instead of him being...
It's a long time ago.
Was it the 80s?
I think it was at least 20 years ago. It
was 1996 with the one.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's still a long time ago.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, the 80s was. I'm sorry. I was confusing that with.
You're thinking of the Sylvester Stallone.
No, I wasn't thinking of Sylvester Stallone. I was thinking of George Takei.
Oh.
George Takei, some guy popped out from the 80s.
The 80s.
85 said he grabbed his dick like, hey, let it go, buddy. Jesus Christ. You know?
It's
and it's also not the
you know there was a molester at my church. We had a priest that was a molester named Father Hollahan.
Shocker. Wait a minute, is it a Catholic church?
Shocker.
What the fuck, man? You can't trust anybody.
And the kids, we used to call him Happy Hands Hollahan because he would always,
Jesus Christ.
because whenever he'd come up, he'd always like want to wrestle you. But he was the last kind of guy.
Oh,
he was a
God.
nerd. He was like he's not a wrestling type guy.
Right, it wasn't a rapist. It
But
was just
he
like
would always
trying.
he'd always come up like, hey, I'm like, why are you doing that? You're just trying to grab me. And so we would call him Happy Hands Hollahan, and we would get in trouble if our parents heard us. Don't, that's disrespectful to the like. He's grabbing our dicks.
Right. Yeah.
So they finally caught him, and I don't know why I started talking about this, but why did I start talking about this? I know, because we're talking about
George Takei.
we always had George Takei.
Yeah.
We always thought it was up to you to not get molested by him. Like if you got
God.
caught, and we would laugh.
Right.
We would laugh at kids who got caught and got
Slow
molested.
kids.
Yeah. So he
Gotta run faster, fucker.
would take us.
So sad.
He would take us. He had a summer house, right, with a boat, and
Oh, how
up in
convenient.
Wisconsin, right. So he would take us, and it was like an hour and a half away. We get in his station wagon. He'd take like 6 boys up to there, and we're going to go water skiing or whatever, right. And so he had the day set up where once you got there, you had to first do cleaning. So you had to change into your cleaning clothes. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
And so every time we had to go in the room and change, he would find a reason to come in the room and wrestle one of us.
Oh, God.
And then we were like, all right, we got to put up with it because we want to go on his boat. We were poor.
Oh, my God.
We were poor. We grew up.
Isn't it funny how it's only funny if it's you? Like, you're
Yeah,
allowed to laugh
yes.
about getting molested as long as it's you.
Yes.
Like no one could say Jimmy was on the Joe Rogan show and he was laughing about child molestation. Oh my God, is that true? Hate speech. Put the blanket on it. Hate speech. But no, he was talking about him getting molested. He's normalizing sexual assault.
He would take us, this priest would try to teach you how to ski. How do you teach someone how to water ski?
You put your dick in their mouth.
You put your dick in their mouth.
Do you know how to breathe underwater? Here
Here we go. Now hold your nose. No spitting. So the way you teach someone how to water ski is you put water skis on them, and then you sit there on the dock, and then you pull away.
Right.
And that's how you learn. So he would take us in shallow water, and then he would would put the skis on you so you couldn't run away from them.
Oh, God.
And then he would put his hands.
Oh, my God.
He would put his hands underneath your crotch like this to
pick you up?
And then he goes, now when the boat pulls, it's going to pull you up like this, and it's going
And
to.
then it's gonna jerk you off. And the only way you gotta catch it in your mouth.
And so it
What
was.
the fuck, man?
And so we looked at it like it was your job to get out of that situation.
Oh, no.
And if you got caught, we'd all laugh at you. I remember my friend Danny. He's in the.
You would laugh.
We laugh.
Oh, my God.
We see him.
Poor
He's in the
Danny.
shallow water, and he's going, "Now if the boat pulls you," and he goes like this, and Danny looks at us, and he goes. He goes,
Oh, no.
and we're laughing.
He's doing it in front of everybody.
Yes, and we're laughing
Oh, no.
and laughing.
Now, did he actually molest anyone other than
Yeah.
these inappropriate touches?
No, he molested people.
Oh, boy.
He had to leave the church and all that stuff. He had
Did
to
he
go-
leave the church or did he just move him?
No, just moved him. He
Yeah,
he
they
went to
move him.
Arizona for a sabbatical.
Yeah.
Yeah, he needs our prayers at this. They sent out a note, like a letter to everybody's house, who was in the. If you gave money, they give you a letter.
Was it Hear No Evil, the documentary, where there was one priest that Benedict, who became the Pope, moved, who went on to molest 100 deaf kids?
Oh no!
Oh no! Yeah, horrific
Ah.
shit. That process of moving people was always terrifying because they basically let them know, hey, you're not even going to be punished
Right.
for this. We're just going to move you.
Just gonna move you.
Yeah, that's all we do.
Yeah, doesn't. I know. I don't understand.
Terrifying stuff.
Yeah, why doesn't the FBI infiltrate the Catholic Church?
Yeah, imagine. I did a joke about it on stage a while back. I was like, imagine if that many NASCAR drivers were fucking kids. How quick would they shut down NASCAR? If NASCAR pulled into town and just fucked all the kids and drove around in a circle real quick, they'd be like, we got to shut this down. This is a crazy organization. But meanwhile, way more people are getting molested by the Catholic Church.
I couldn't agree more. And
It's a terrifying number when you look at the numbers of people that have just accused them of sexual assault and molestation. It's terrifying.
yeah, it's terrifying. And all the money they take that you give them on Sunday to go pay these people off is also.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate that I ducked that. I got lucky. I was out of Catholic school.
Oh, you went
but-
to Catholic school?
Yeah, for 1 year only, but
Oh.
first grade. I was gone after first grade. And I had friends that stayed, and I knew people that got touched. It's for people who are outside the Catholic faith, people who are there's something that happened. And it probably happened when they told them they couldn't get married anymore. Because it used to be the Pope could get married, the Pope was allowed to have children, and that priests were allowed to be married, priests were allowed to have children, but they were rock stars. You have to realize, like back in the Lutheran days, the days of Martin Luther and those guys were fucking everybody. They would get at you in that confession. They in the confession booth, tell me what you did, Dolores. And Dolores is out there just sucking dicks all day. Show me how you sucked it, Dolores. I mean, they were banging everybody. And then they came up with some sort of a reason why they should have to be celibate. And from then on...
Well, so here's what I heard. What happened was that, so there was two ways to become nobility in the medieval times. You could be born noble, or you could you buy your way into the church. And so you could become nobility. And so what would happen is these rich motherfuckers who would buy their way into the church would die, and then all their money would go to their kid, their firstborn. And the church is like, we got to get our hands on that money. And so they passed the law, hey, nobody can get married legally. They all did. They still had kids and shit, and they still had mistresses and whatever. But when they died, all their money and property went to the church.
That makes sense.
And so, of course, it's all about money. So that's the story I heard. If anybody heard different, let me know.
I believe it's both. I bet it had something to do with sex as well, and preventing those guys from fucking everybody. Because they were rock stars. There was no rock stars back then. So the guys they were the spokespersons for God would most likely be the ones who had the most influence in the community. I mean,
yes,
there was a kid that we went to school with who was clearly gay and nice guy, and he was going to become a priest when we were all in high school together. So as we were like riding the bus going to high school, he was like a couple of years ahead of me, and he was leaving school, and he was already on his way. What is it, divinity school or seminary school?
Seminary, I think.
Yeah, he was on his way. And we were all calling him father already, and it was just ridiculous. We were all accepting the fact this guy was going to be a priest. But, for him, he was so obviously gay that, I didn't give a shit, but I knew, you could tell, he's gay. He's a gay guy. He never had any interest in girls, never was around them, kind of just an oddly feminine man, and decided to take up the priesthood. And we all, treated him like he was different because he was going to become a priest. It was very weird.
Yeah, priests are still treated like rock stars in the Catholic Church today.
Yeah, and he was, meanwhile, was just another 16-year-old kid, just like us. Maybe he was 17 at the time, and I think I was 15. But it was just, he wasn't any different than us, but we were calling him father and stuff, and it was just so strange.
I had two uncles that went to seminary.
Oof.
One of them became a priest, and the other one, over the summer, had a friend who got pregnant, and he had to drop out of the seminary.
Wow.
But when you went to my grandmother's house, as you walked up the steps into their living room, the two pictures she would have greeting you was a picture of both her sons in their priest outfits. So one was actually a priest, and one had to cook another. But that's the picture she kept up.
Right.
The guy's bringing over his 4 kids to her house. There's the picture of him. Daddy, why are you in the priest outfit?
At one point in time.
So yeah, that's. Are you still religious? You still go to church?
No.
Okay.
No.
I go because I go to church, a Baptist church in Pasadena, because my mother-in-law goes, and she asked me to go.
Oh, well, it's probably fun.
And I said, okay, I'll go.
I'm being protested by the Westboro Baptist Church tomorrow.
Are you?
Yes.
Where?
In Kansas City.
Oh,
I'm very excited.
Oh, that is that. Oh, I've always wanted to be protested.
Very excited.
Good for you.
They put out a press release, and they even responded to I put out a post, and they had a tweet. Someone who has no idea what God wants is speaking for God. Because I said that if God, if there is a God, they said I was an atheist, which I'm really not. I don't consider myself anything. I don't consider myself religious. I'm not an atheist. I'm just a person who doesn't know. And
that's called an agnostic, I think, right?
I'm more agnostic than anything, but I don't even want to put a label on it. So why should I have to be on someone's camp? My opinions are allowed to evolve, and I'm allowed to. And I've done a lot of drugs. I've seen some shit that I can't explain. And psychedelics, man, well, they'll get you whatever confidence you have that there's no God. You go through a DMT trip, and you come out on the other end. You're like, okay, maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Maybe I don't know anything. And that's I'm in the maybe I don't know anything camp. So I said that if there was a God, I don't know if there's a God, but if there was a God, he or she would probably be very disappointed. These hateful twats pretending they speak for him, putting up signs that say God hates fags. Like, you really think this is what God would want? That's outrageous.
And so that's what they're upset about,
Yeah,
that you
they're
said
upset
that?
that I speak for God.
Oh, but they can speak for God.
Yeah, they see God hates fags. I don't see that written anywhere. Look through the Bible. It never says God hates fags. That's their website is godhatesfags.com. Just stop and think about that.
I think they should take their Facebook page away.
Do they have a YouTube channel?
I don't
Does Westboro Baptist Church have a YouTube channel?
But
Yeah.
but don't you? I mean,
Hate speech.
yeah, don't you think we're living in a weird era of like people wanting to just discredit people, just like
Yes.
get rid of them? Like,
Yes.
oh, you
Cancel.
don't believe this one thing that the establishment says you have to. There's only one narrative on this Syrian war, and if you go away from it, you're a bad person, and you're an apologist for Assad, and you're a Putin puppet and all. It's like, what the fuck? No, I just have a different view on the war, and it's based on facts and evidence. And I
Right.
don't know if you know, but those people you're trusting now were the ones who continuously lied to us. So I've never lied to you about a war. You're upset because I'm skeptical of the people who constantly lie about war. That's just that's just a weird thing, and it's like this. But I guess it's probably always been this way, Joe. I don't know. I just now that I'm experiencing it because I'm in the public talking about this stuff, and it's just weird how people are so quick to go along with the establishment. Look at how the lefties are defending the intelligence community, wishing Robert Mueller a fucking happy birthday on Twitter like a bunch of idiots. So ridiculous. It's like, do you guys have any sense of history? Do you have any sense of recent history? No. It's just it shows you how the hatred of someone could make people's lizard brains excited, and then rational thinking goes out the. So I love, Ron Placone on my show says, I hate Trump as much as anybody, but I'm not going to let him steal my critical thinking skills. And so that's the same. And so the thing that I like about what our show does, we're very consistent. I don't have one set of rules for people I like and another set of rules for people I oppose.
And I really, really appreciate that about you. And that's one of the things that I said about you the first time we came on, is that you shoot straight no matter whether it's right or left. Whatever you see, you call it like you see it. There's no partisan politics. And I think that's very important. And it's so rare. It doesn't exist anymore. I was watching, or I was listening rather, to Sam Harris's, one of his podcasts recently, where his guest made a really important point, saying that we're at this strange time in history where the news is different depending on what channel you watch. It used to be you had different people telling you the news. Now you have different news.
Totally different
news.
Yes, isn't that something?
And it's completely partisan. I mean, it's 100% left or 100% right. And you're either all in with us. And I feel like what we're talking about here and what you're describing is idea sports. Like this needing to shut people down. They want to get a result. They want to win the game. Like right now, they just slam dunked on Alex Jones, and they're high-fiving all around the coffee shop. All the baristas are fucking psyched. They're really excited. They're making espresso. Yeah, we shut him down. We fucking shut him down. We're going to put on our masks and our bike locks. We're going to whack Trump supporters in the head tonight. Like, this is a strange time for ideas. You can't even objectively assess the merits of an idea, because the ideas have already been clearly delineated. It's very clearly
These are the acceptable
mapped out.
ideas.
Yes.
This is the acceptable parameters of this conversation. These are the acceptable ideas, and if
And
you
that's
go over
it.
them, you are persona non grata.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where
It's real.
And meanwhile you turn on NBC, it's just littered with liars.
Yeah. And so is Fox. And
Of course.
You know what I love? Shepard Smith.
Shep Smith.
He's a fascinating character. What he's doing over there is going against everything. He goes against, like, you ever seen the what Sean Hannity says versus Shepard Smith?
Yeah, I've seen those
It's
videos.
fucking hilarious.
It's pretty funny.
And he's right. And he's not just right, he's right constitutionally. Like what he's saying when he's describing what Sean Hannity said versus the reality, he's right. He's right in terms of what is a law. He's right
Yes.
in terms of what, whether or not something is legal or whether or not it's unethical.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like Shep Smith. Like, when he gets something wrong, I think he's just genuinely getting it wrong. I don't
Right.
think it's because he's trying to push it there. He might be unconsciously corrupted, but not consciously.
How did he get over there?
I don't
How is
know.
he over there?
I don't know. You tell me.
Do you remember when Hannity was on with Combs? It was Hannity and Combs.
Yeah.
They took the weaseliest, weakest looking liberal they could find, a guy who looks like he just sweats canola oil, and they put him on TV opposite like this.
Well, right wingers. You know how Sean met him. Right wingers used to hire Alan Combs to come perform at his parties, and he would just cower in the corner, and that's what they had. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I feel sorry. I feel bad making fun of him because he's not alive anymore.
He's not?
Alan Combs. I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Oh, when did he die?
Like a year ago or 2 years ago. Can you Google that and see if he? I'm
But
pretty sure.
Hannity and him split up. The band broke up
Yeah.
long before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
And Young.
Yeah, he passed
Yeah.
away in February last year.
Yeah.
February last year. So
Yeah, he was this guy.
he was a very nice guy, though.
I'm sure he was a nice guy, but it was almost like he didn't get riled up on purpose to keep his job. He got riled up enough to make liberals look like pushovers, and so the people at home in Kansas would be like, "Ah, stupid liberals."
Yeah.
Sean Hannity's my man. Sean Hannity's a good American.
Yes.
You know, like Sean Hannity with his big fat white bread eating face, and that he was just the one who was telling the truth about the real problem and the Dems. And it's so fascinating to see that video with Shepard Smith just clearly and very cleanly dissecting everything that Hannity says.
Well, the ironic.
Here it is, right here.
Oh yeah, that's
Look
the
at him.
video.
6 minutes of it. But,
Yeah, we can't play this though, right? On YouTube.
well,
Here we go.
probably not. Yes, the news, though.
There's no evidence to prove any of this is true
Here
after
we go.
nearly 18 months.
The Russian investigation is the opposite of a hoax. And now, indictments against Russian organizations and persons have been handed up.
It's hilarious.
It goes on and on.
Yeah, it
This
goes
is
on and
something
on.
the media refuses
It's
to
Fox
accept
News. Shep
as
Smith
constitutional
shuts down Sean Hannity's lies and propaganda. How is Shep Smith still at Fox News? How's that work?
You tell me.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. Doesn't Sean Hannity's eyes look like he's?
Drugged up.
Yeah.
Their
Yeah,
chief
he's
anchor,
It's on some pills.
His eyes. He looks like something's wrong.
Who's their chief anchor?
Shepard Smith,
Yeah.
and
But
the
let
head
me-
of their breaking news division.
But let me
Yeah.
tell you about what Sean Hannity has been doing. Is that woman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York who beat Joe Crowley, and she's the big Democratic socialist, and everybody's got their bush in a knot over it because, oh my God, she's the corporate Democrats hate her, the right wing she freaks out, right? Because he's actually going to help people. And Sean Hannity's been like reading out like, look what she likes. She wants to have Medicare for all. She wants to have free college. She wants a living wage. She wants to end the war. And people, I'm sure, almost half his audience are like, that sounds looking pretty good. That's
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, Sean, things are tough out here in the
Wait a
heartland.
minute. Is that possible to do all those things?
I don't have to worry about medical bills for my
Shouldn't-
fucking kids anymore. That'd be
shouldn't we
fantastic.
try for that?
I don't have to worry about sending my kids to college. It's awesome. Because you have endless money for these wars. I'm sure you have some money for us, right? I
Isn't college subsidized? Like, why is it so expensive?
Why is it so expensive? So it's actually backfiring. In fact, there was a poll that Fox and Friends and Friends and Friends put out that said
Fox and Super Friends?
Super Friends. And it said, do you think the $32.6 trillion for Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan is worth it? Of course, they left out the other part, which turns out it saves $2-something trillion, right?
Right.
That's the part they leave out. So they're gaslighting their own viewers, just like all news organizations lie to their own viewers. So that poll went up, and 73% of the Fox and Friends and Friends and Friends viewers said they want Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All. 73%, and 30,000 people voted in that poll. So that's not just nothing. So it's like, so now they think that's scary. Socialism it doesn't scare people anymore because now there's the internet. People can go look what it's like to live in
But it's
Denmark. What's
the
it
way
like
you
to
say
live?
it though? It's like, do you support communism? Do you support socialism? Then people will say no.
No.
I don't support communism.
Do you support Medicare? Yeah. Do you support Social Security? Of course. Do you support public education? Yes. Okay. Are you for public roads? Are you for the post office? Are you for the fire department? Are you for the Yes.
Right.
This is all socialism.
Yeah.
You like
it is.
libraries? You like yes.
Yeah.
That's all socialism.
Yeah. There's
And
good aspects to it.
and so yeah.
Particularly like free healthcare. Who the fuck wants someone that you love to be shit out of luck where they can't go to a doctor because they can't afford it? And what if they die? Come on.
So when I went to Norway, my friend Steve-O went to Norway too, and something that he noticed is
Hot Norwegian broads.
oh, did we ever? Anyway.
And guys too. And the guys.
Gary,
don't leave out the guys.
Oh, the fellas. I got to tell you, they do wear comically tight pants.
The guys do?
In Europe.
Yeah.
It's like, my wife said, it's like, those, she goes up to, the fashion designers are fucking with you. You know that, right? It's like, oh, I always wanted to know what your keys look like shrink wrapped. That's fantastic. What the fuck? How many comics you see on stage, you can see what their fucking phone make is and their key. Oh, you drive a BMW. That's nice. It's like, what the fuck?
You want to make sure they can't run away quick.
Yeah.
Want to have their legs bound up.
Skinny jeans. Anyway, but over there, when they talk about healthcare, we go, oh, do you like free healthcare? They go, we don't call it free healthcare. We call it included. Because it's included in your taxes,
That makes sense.
Just like your public education here, just like your streets and roads here, just like your
Fire department.
It's included. We don't go, you get free police, you get free fire department. No, it's included in your taxes. Your roads.
Road maintenance. Yeah.
And so that's the funny thing that Sean Hannity and the right wing, they think they can scare people by saying, look, all the stuff they're off. No, if the Democrats would have been off, Hillary Clinton would have been offering people something, maybe half the country who didn't vote would have came out and voted for her. So that's the thing. The Democrats have nothing to offer people, and which is why they're a shit show at a failed party, and they're wiped out at every level of government. And so if they take over, it's like in the Congress, there's a chance they might. It's just, again, they're the ones doing the bidding for Trump. They just handed him more money for defense than he even asked for. So if Trump, here's the funny thing, if Trump is a maniac, they like to say he's unhinged, he's a maniac, and he shouldn't have his finger on the button. Let's give him $80 billion more for bombs. Those two things are incongruent. Those don't go together. So you're bullshitting me on one end or another.
Do you think he's going to get through this without going to jail?
Yes.
Do you think his son's going to go to jail?
I'm not good at predicting things, but they should all go to jail because they're probably all corrupt doing corrupt shit. But if you put a special prosecutor on anybody, they'll find crimes on anybody. The shit they're prosecuting Manafort for doesn't have anything to do with the election or Trump's campaign. It's all shit before the Trump's campaign when he was in collusion with Tony Podesta from the Podesta Group. He was funneling money from fucking Ukraine, and they were giving it through the Podesta Foundation. So,
is that what he's getting charged for?
He's getting charged for shit that happened before he ever even worked for Trump. So that's the part they don't tell you. They go, Manafort charged. But then in the 80th paragraph, they go, this has nothing to do with the election. Every article's like that.
So it's just a matter of them deciding to put a microscope up your ass and find things you did wrong.
They put a microscope up Bill Clinton's ass about some land deal in Arkansas, and it ended up going to a blowjob in the Oval Office, and he got impeached for it. So they got rid of the special prosecutor after that because they realized that you'll find crimes on anybody if you put a special prosecutor on them. And now they bring it back for Trump. They're not prosecuting literal fucking war criminals, Joe. Literal, we know they're war criminals. There was a thing called the torture program. We know that it was a real thing. No one goes to jail. Nobody's prosecuted. But goddamn it, they got a special prosecutor for Trump. Not that they shouldn't, but we all know if you put a special prosecutor on anybody in Washington, they're going to find a lot of fucking crimes.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
That's all the same game. And this thing about not registering as foreign agents, and they all play the same game. They don't register as foreign agents until they get caught, and then the government allows them to go backtrack and re-register. But they're not doing that. Now, we're not going to let Manafort. He made a mistake. So, again, there's ways to oppose Trump. And the Russia thing isn't it. The way to oppose Trump is you offer people something else. He ran to the left of Hillary Clinton on foreign policy. He wanted to end our foreign wars, according to his rhetoric in his campaign. He wanted to give everybody health care. Remember, everyone's going to get health care and it's going to be cheaper. That was his plan. Of course, he's doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So,
but who does the thing they say they're going to do?
Whoever does the thing.
Who's ever done it? No one.
Nobody. That's why that's why democracy is not based on trust. It's based on mistrust. It's based on transparency.
You remember that bit that Bill Hicks used to do about he's something along the lines of, I think that when you get elected, they bring you into a smoky room filled with globalists, and they show you an angle of the Kennedy assassination that you've never seen before.
They roll it. They
roll, any questions? What's my agenda? But it almost seems like that's what happens. Obama changed his tune. Remember on the Hope and Change website that had all that shit about whistleblowers being afforded protection?
That was all gone the day he got elected. That was all.
Well,
he stood up for a while
ago. It took a while for him being in office before they realized that was still in there, and then deleted it all.
he disbanded his own followers, right? So when he got elected, Barack Obama, he had all these young people who were activated and they signed up. He had a mailing list. He had all their and we want to go do shit for you. We want to go be and they were like, get rid of them. And he did. He got rid of them because you can't control them. Yes. They fuck them. And that's, then Bernie Sanders has his campaign and says, everybody, we got to fight this fucking evil machine. And then on a dime, he goes, hey, by the way, let's join this evil machine. What
do you think happens?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not good at that. I know what people have said. Chris Hedges said that Bernie Sanders didn't want to end up like Ralph Nader, who was unfairly held accountable again for the Democrats. The Democrats lost to fucking a game show host, okay?
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about. They can't come to terms with this. And they don't want us to examine the system that gave us Trump, and they don't want to examine how they could have, the most qualified person in the world couldn't even beat fucking Donald Trump. That's how qualified you were, you son of a bitch.
Well, they wanted Trump to win because they thought he would be the easiest guy to beat in the election.
That was that. So isn't it funny that nobody gets mad at them? Nobody's upset at Chris Hayes for having empty podiums of Trump for a whole show, which I saw. And then he wags his finger at Susan Sarandon. You're the son of a bitch who propped Trump up, and you didn't cover Bernie Sanders because you were fucking told not to. And we know that for a fact because of Ed Schultz. And now you're going to pretend like you're a sanctimonious fucking prick, and you're going to wag your finger at people with no money and no power. Meanwhile, you have the biggest microphone of anybody, and you fucking prop Donald Trump up, and you don't take responsibility. That's why he's a piece of shit.
Look at you. He's getting very excited. Very excited.
That's
Jimmy.
why. He's doing their bidding right now. All those people are doing their bidding because Ed Schultz revealed, and Phil Donahue, if you tell the truth, they will fucking fire your ass. They've got guys like Ali Vesci and Rachel Maddow pretending they don't know how net neutrality works. I don't know. Is it good? It's a big thing. I know it's important, but I don't know which way. We'll see how it rolls out. I don't know. That's what tools are. Hey, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it too. I'm just not being offered $30,000 a day to sell my soul. I would.
It seems confusing to me that they're thinking about using Hillary again. Because it seems to me that she's starting to make her way back into news cycles and giving speeches. And
she has a PAC that's supposed to be supporting women who are running for office, except not Cynthia Nixon.
Well,
she's going to prop up the most corrupt motherfucker New York has had for a long time.
Why? It was supposed to be about just women. It was gender-based.
That's what she says.
Why is it gender-based?
She said she was starting a PAC to help encourage women to run. I read that in an interview with her. And I'm like, really? Why isn't that PAC then supporting Cynthia Nixon? Why are you supporting, what the fuck?
What
of course,
Cynthia
it's all
Nixon
bullshit.
Run under? Was she independent?
She's running a Democrat. And she's running against Cuomo. And... So of course,
she's running for mayor?
No, governor.
She's running for governor in New York? Mm-hmm. I knew she was running for something. I didn't know it was that big.
And Cuomo's just one of the most corrupt. He's just again. We have a one-party rule. We have corporate rule, and all these people are in bed with the corporations because they're bought. Because that's the way our elections work.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's why Hillary Clinton has a private position and a public position. And I'm not saying she's the only one, but she's the one that we know actually literally said that because of WikiLeaks, thank God.
Yeah.
And that, again, I'll go back to Julian Assange. The fact that none of the reporters in the United States are sticking up for Julian Assange shows you that what they do is fucking wrestling, and they don't do real journalism.
Wrestling. And what's really interesting about the Julian Assange thing is if you ask people what he did, because of the reductionist thinking, because of they've allowed this narrative to play forward, they'll say he's accused of sexual assault. And when you find out the actual facts of it, he had sex with a woman, consensual sex, and in the middle of the night he stuck it in without a condom. And they were calling it surprise sex, right?
I don't know.
But there's it didn't make any sense. And why are you extraditing him to the United States for surprise sex that he had in, where was it, Norway or somewhere?
Of course, they weren't going to come at you. Of course, if the CIA wants to get you, the first thing they do, I bet she's a rapist. Let's get some people. And that whole prosecutor who tries to prosecute was discredited for doing so. They were apologized to Julian Assange. The UN
and the woman
stood up for Julian Assange and the woman.
Yeah.
So
meanwhile, they still have him holed up in the Ecuador embassy. Mm-hmm. What is he going to do? They want to kick him out, right?
Well, the ACLU is, I think, supporting him in the United States. So, and certain people of character are I think, supporting him, or I guess not him, but the idea of journalistic integrity, freedom of speech, the right to publish. If you watch that movie, The Post, which was all about Daniel Ellsberg and the Vietnam, the Pentagon Papers, which exposed that 4 administrations were lying to us about the Vietnam War. Not a Republican, not a Democrat. They're all the same. Again, the same fucking two wings of the same party, two right wings. It's the military-industrial party. And the hero of that movie is the woman who was the head of the Washington Post, not Daniel Ellsberg. He was the real fucking hero. But how can you make that movie in this day and age and not mention Chelsea Manning, not mention Edward Snowden, and not go, the Daniel Ellsbergs of today, we imprison them. Yeah. And that's what we're doing. We imprison the Daniel Ellsbergs of today. And everybody, I watch panels of the actors from that movie and the director and sit around talk. Nobody ever brings that shit up. It's unfucking believable to me that they don't understand that they're doing, that's propaganda. Look how good our Washington Post is. The Washington Post went on to let us into every fucking war after that movie was supposedly made, right? So after they did that and they printed that, they backed every goddamn war since. They're the ones who told us that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and it was irrefutable. That was the headline on their editorial page. It wasn't some op-ed. It was their editorial board said irrefutable. Now, isn't that fake news? Should they have their Facebook page taken down? That actually led to the fucking death of millions of people. Yeah. So, this is why I have a show. This is what I'm talking about. And thank God, in a sense, thank God the media sucks so bad because now I get to do their job. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm a C student, jag-off nightclub comedian, and I do my job better than they do.
Well, you don't have a boss. That's the thing. You're not beholden to anybody.
I was just offered a TV show, and I want to say by who. And
Satan.
I was Satan, and I was offered anything I wanted. Jimmy, you want to do 5 days in the morning? You want to do 1 day a week? You want to do this? I'll give you your own studio, your own crew, the whole deal. And I had to look at the guy and I said, I've been waiting my whole career for someone to make me an offer like this, and I just have to tell you no thanks.
Wow.
And he's like, what do you want? And I said, I don't want anything. I already have everything I want. And I go, I don't want to drive across town and go do a show in somebody else's studio. I walk out my back door, I do my show in my garage. I don't fucking need your money. I don't need the boss. Wow. I don't need it. I'm selling out theaters right now. That's what I want to do. I go, I want to spend less time in the studio and more time touring because that's fun.
Yeah.
Dude, it is unbelievable. The best part of my life is right now. It's unbelievable. I'm so glad I didn't kill myself 8 years ago. I was so close to killing myself. I'm so glad I didn't. And it was my hatred for people that kept me alive.
Amazing.
Because I didn't want people, I already said this, I think, to you. I didn't want people to go, aha, he didn't make it. I was like, fuck you. I am making it, and then I'm going to kill myself.
Don't say that. They'll use that as a see.
See, he's not. But
he killed himself. He didn't get suicided. He didn't get silenced.
I didn't. So I was just back in Chicago, and I played a place called Thalia Hall, which is fucking.
That's where Brian Callen just did his new special.
Beautiful. I have a video up from that show on my channel. Oh, it was so. I used to live when I started to be a comedian. I moved to that neighborhood. It was back then. It wasn't a nice neighborhood, right? It was like a tougher neighborhood. But I got to live closer to the city, and all my comedian friends lived there because it was affordable. And now it's being gentrified and shit. And they've got this new theater, and it's not new, but it's old, and they refurbished it. And it's 600 people, and I came out, and it was just like, it was just like heaven, And they're like my whole career, I tried to figure out how to get people to stand up at the end of my set. Like, how do I get what? I don't want to do it in a shitty way. I don't want to manipulate them, but I want to have it come from my heart and inspire people and make them want to stand up, to get a standing ovation, right? And now they stand up when I come out.
Wow.
I don't have to worry about it. It's already done. So this is the greatest time of my life. And it's because nobody, people can't get anywhere else what I'm doing. There's just nothing else like it. Bill Maher, God bless his soul, he's a corporatist and he's part of the problem, right? And I like Bill Maher. I read his book that he wrote about comedy. I bet you didn't even know he had one. It was really funny.
No, the novel. I read that.
Yeah, it's true. I think it was called True Stories.
True Story.
Yeah. I love that book.
That's a great book.
I read that book twice.
What was one guy's name? Shit,
fuck, chink, and something else.
Yeah. Wow, he better be careful.
He better be careful because that's not good.
Find out about that book. Yeah. It's got an ethnic slur in one of the characters' names.
That's right.
That was from the 80s, wasn't it?
90s.
90s?
Yeah.
So he wrote about it.
He wrote about how modern day comedy got started.
Yeah.
And how it was really interesting.
It's a good book.
About he would go on the road and he'd be the first comedian a club had ever seen, and they didn't know he was, like the waitresses didn't know he was leaving the next week. Shit like that. It was like it didn't sink in how things worked. It was such an interesting book to read. Anyway, but now he's he brags that he gave $1 million to Barack Obama, which is fantastic too. But
did he really?
Yeah, on air. So it's just like I get it. I aspire to be Bill Maher. I aspire to be a millionaire for 30 years and a little bit out of touch. That's good for you. You did it. You did it.
Oh, God.
So anyway, but it's good. Again, I get upset because I want him to be better or be more like I want him to be.
Yeah.
But it actually helps me, right? So if the more he shifts to the right, the more his audience comes to me, right? And the more I get on stage, all I have to do is mention his name on stage at a live show, and people fucking boo him, right?
Really?
Yeah, progressives don't like him. No, he
When
doesn't.
did that happen?
When did that happen? Bernie Sanders' campaign.
Really?
He doesn't get that there's a difference. That there's a difference between Hillary and Bernie Sanders.
How could he not get it?
You tell me. I play videos of him saying that, no, they were basically the same. What's the big deal? And then these progressives are just being babies. And isn't it funny progressives are being babies when they won't support warmongering corporatists, but centrist corporatists are being adults when they fuck over progressives. They don't ever accommodate them. They don't ever drop their values and come over and be progressives. We're always supposed to go that way. They never go the other way. Unity means, hey, you guys shut the fuck up and fall in line and become a corporatist. That's what they mean when they say unity. And it ain't happening. And I'm telling you, Bernie Sanders is making a big mistake by not starting a third party right now. That's how you influence. If he does not win the Democratic nomination in 2020, what has he built over these 4 years? Fucking nothing.
Do you think he's going to run?
Yeah.
He's going to run in 2020?
Yes. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about.
I thought he had said he was done. I thought he said he was going to try again.
He's running again.
You think so?
If there's, I'll make that prediction.
Yeah?
I'll make that prediction.
I'll bet you $1.
I'll bet you $2.
Ooh, double down. Okay, $5.
Okay, all right.
Ooh, we're on.
I'll go
You can
$5.
sell out Talia Hall. You can afford $5.
Best time of my life. I can't believe it.
I'm
so
happy for you.
I can't believe it.
That's amazing.
It's so nice, and I have no representation right now. By the way, I have none.
Ooh,
I
that's
never.
even better.
It's almost yes.
That's even better. You get all the cheddar.
I was working with this guy, Alex Murray, who's a great guy. I love Alex Murray, and he got me specials. He got me Comedy Central specials, a Hulu special. He sold a book for me. Fucking great guy. I love Alex Murray, but he got real busy, right? He represents a bunch of Chris Hardwick, and he had and Jim Gaffigan, all these guys he represents. So he got too busy for me, which I understand. It was weird. So we stopped working together right as my show started taking off. Right as I'm like, what the fuck? And all of a sudden, people start showing up in clubs when I'm there, and I'm like, whoa. Yeah. And we start selling out weeks ahead of time. I'm like, holy fuck.
I did the Chicago Theater in...
How many seats is that?
3,700.
Jesus, you are popular.
Pretty popular.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know what happened, but I did the Chicago Theater many years ago, and I remember saying something about the podcast, and I said, how many of you guys listen to the podcast? And it was a roar through the crowd. And I went, whoa. That was when I realized. I was like, whoa.
Oh, yeah?
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was going to be like 10% of the people.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to anything, man. This is one of the secrets for me staying me. And people have accused me of changing. It's called I evolve as a person.
Yeah.
I learn more. I study myself. I'm ruthlessly critical of myself. I'm very analytical, self-analytical, and I don't like a lot of the stuff I do. This is just so I get better at it, hopefully. But I just didn't know that anybody was paying attention. I wasn't looking. I don't look at numbers. I occasionally look and I go, ugh, I don't want to think about that, and I don't think about it. I just do it. But that moment where I was in front of 3,700 people, and I go, how many of you guys listen to the podcast? And they went, yeah. I was like, whoa, okay. This is not what I expected. I thought it was going to be a bunch of people, but a bunch of people like, no, man, no, Fear Factor, UFC, whatever. And that's when I realized something was going on. That's a weird feeling, right? When you realize all these people are coming to see you because of something you did yourself.
Yeah, yes, because of something you did. And it was when I stopped trying almost. It was when
Same with Marin. You know, when Marin stopped trying is when WTF took off.
Yes, that's same with me. Like when I stopped censoring myself or overthinking, like I would go on stage and I would have my jokes down to a science, right?
Yeah.
And that's obviously YouTube is not that way, and I just let it rip. And that's the thing that connected with people. It's so amazing. And the Burbank, they had that Burbank Comedy Festival at that Flappers Comedy Club, and they asked me, they go, would you do your podcast here at 5:00 on a Thursday or whatever? And I was like, okay, I'll do it for you, whatever. And I did about 5 people there. Who's going to fucking show up at 5:00 on a Thursday in Burbank, right? The place is almost full, and I was like, uh-oh. That's when I was like, whoa.
What the fuck's going on?
5:00, and there were girls there. I'll never forget this, that they came from Compton. Whoa. And they were like, oh, we had to get off work. We had to get a ride. We got here. We had to see. And I was like, wow, I'm really connecting with people, right? That
Yeah.
that don't look like me, but they share the same ideology. And it's like when I would go see George Carlin, if you ever went and saw him live, there were 80-year-old hippies and there were teenager kids and there was everybody in between. And that's what it looks like at my shows, and it makes me so fucking happy. So that's when I was like, woo. And I was like, thanks, Flappers, for making me do this show, because now I realize.
Well, listen, Jimmy, I'm happy for you, too. And I really think that you're one of the only people out there that really doesn't toe a line one way or the other. You really do speak the truth. And I said that about you the first time. I said it about you before I ever had you on. I was like, this guy just says what he thinks. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, you can't point to him and say, oh, this guy is just a left-wing hack, or this guy is a right-wing apologist, or whatever it is. You just say what you think. And that is so refreshing, and it's so valuable. There's just not enough of that today. There's not enough. And these people that are super intelligent, that think that if you vote one way, it's a protest vote, and you shouldn't have a protest vote because you're throwing away your vote and you're going to let the right-wing people win, like, you're missing everything. You're missing this whole thing. This whole thing is super complicated. It's very complicated, and the only way to see through the haze is to be honest. And you're one of the only people that's doing it.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, and I think that there's a lot of common ground, especially when it comes to getting corporations' fingers out of our government and ending wars. I think a lot of people agree on that, and that actually scares the establishment.
Yeah, I think it does. Jimmy.
Joe.
Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Tell people how they get your show. Tell people what your Twitter page, all
so
that
just go to jimmydorcomedy.com. That's my website. And we're on the YouTubes at youtube.com/The Jimmy Dore Show. And I'm on Twitter, Jimmy_Dore, the whole thing.
I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it, too.
Jimmy Dore, ladies and gentlemen.